Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the May 4th meeting of the Richmond Selectboard. Is there any public comment? Any additions, deletions, or modifications to the agenda? We'd had one request for modification, the email, and then that request was retracted. Is that correct, Seth?
Yeah.
Yeah. So no modifications. I appreciate the follow-up, though. Impressive. On to the main agenda. We have an announcement of hiring a finance director to fill the role. Want to do that, Charlie?
Yeah. So Connie, our current finance director, is retiring at the end of May. So we went through a hiring process and with the goal of having someone start in early May. We've hired Katie Fogel to start. She started today for her first day. She's going to have about a month of overlap with Connie, I think, which will be very helpful. Connie's also written a ton of procedures and guidelines to help her get through a number of the different, monthly, annual tasks that happen. And Katie comes to us most recently from the Grand Isle Supervisory Union, served as the payroll and business operations coordinator. So she's got a good background in finance, and she's already picking some things up. She really knows her payroll stuff already, so we're off and running there. I want to thank Caitlin and our treasurer, Jim Feinson, for being on the search committee to help us review resumes and interview applicants. So very good to have a few extra people on that to help us determine the next person to hire. And look forward to having her join a meeting here at some point in the future, I'm sure.
Great. Next, we have consideration of approving the use of $621.76 from the Special Projects Reserved Fund to cover the actual cost of the Browns Court parking lot, which exceeded the $12,000 that was initially approved. This is work that was completed by Pete and crew. I think we had approved $12,000 to cover materials and equipment rental. Is that correct?
Right. Yeah.
And then it sounds like the equipment was significantly more expensive to rent than anticipated. And then they ended up using more grade gravel just once they got into it to make the grades all work.
Yeah, a lot of
subgrade, below grade.
Yeah, subgrade. Sorry, grade. Sorry, the base.
It's not subgrade.
It's true. Yeah, you got me. The water heater. Oh, really? Hot water heater. Getting the hot water up.
And then we also added some more bollards and chain on the wooded side of the parking lot to create more of a separation between walkers and the cars.
Oh, great. I missed that part.
Between that and the gravel, those were the two sort of main drivers of going over by a couple $100.
I would point out that $600 is approximately one dump truck load of gravel.
Yeah.
If this was a private contractor and this was, work for hire, I'd feel differently. I don't see where the town crew has any incentive to cook the numbers here.
None at all.
So I would make a motion to approve the use of $621.76 from the Special Projects Reserve Fund to cover the costs of the Browns Court parking lot.
Caitlin, I'll second that.
Motion is second. Any discussion? All those in? Oh,
I would encourage you to go up and look at parking. They did a wonderful job, very professional. We had bids for a lot more money, private contractors, so the 600 and access is well worth it.
Nice.
that's a really good point, Brian. We're still well under any of the bids we got from a private contractor. So Pete's still, even quote, going over the initial estimate, saved the town a ton of money, got a lot done quick. So,
and I'm sure, Fran, we all appreciate your comment about the quality of the work as well, not just the cost. That's really helpful. Thanks. Pass it on to Pete.
all those in favor?
Bart, aye.
Caitlin, aye.
Greg, aye.
David, I.
Adam, aye. Well, Pete's on, but thank you, Pete. He's not. Next, we have consideration of authorizing the use of up to $1,700 from the Special Projects Reserve Fund to rehabilitate the Welcome to Richmond signs that are located at Route 2 as you enter the village.
So it's two sides.
Two signs. There's
Just the
one
Richmond
one on either
Yeah.
side, right?
Is this based on a quote or?
And
Yeah, please.
those signs are 45 years old. At one time, we had a group called the Richmond Women's Group. And we had craft fairs, fundraiser, we raised money for those signs. We went out.
Excuse
to
me,
bid.
Fran, could you get a little closer to the microphone? Just come on up.
We went out to bid and, I don't know if he's still alive, but it was a gentleman from Stowe who designed the signs. And, they have been, the Richmond Women's Group paid after we had the signs crafted and installed, we paid maybe 15 years after they were installed to have them refurbished. And then a Boy Scout as an Eagle project had at least one refurbished maybe 15 years ago. I noticed this, I'm speaking for myself, I guess. I'm not representing anybody. But I just have a vested interest in the signs. The one by the fire department is in terrible shape. It's tilted, looks like the 4x4s have been hit. Then the one on the other side, my husband and I spent 2 hours last week cleaning up weeds and vines so that you could see the sign. That isn't in as bad shape, but if we're going to do one, we should do both. To craft new signs and to figure out what they would be is something I have no desire to be involved in. So the individual by the name of Ken Wyman works for Birdseye. He rehabbed them the first time. So I went to him and said, can you look at them and see if they can be rehabbed? And he said, yes. And I said, well, you know anybody who could do it? And he would do it for $700 a sign, but they would need 4x4s, new, at least the one on the east side. So the amount that we're asking for would allow a little bit of flexibility, but the signs are redwood.
Okay.
They look like Sparky Potter signs.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
It was a guy by the name of Michael Fury from Stowe, and I
okay.
don't know whatever happened to him, but Ken is the only bid we got. He's works for Birdseye. We've had him do stuff in our home. He's a very quality person, so he's willing to remove the signs and rehabilitate them. These 4x4s need to be replaced, and he would like somebody other than himself to have to replace them. And he could probably get the sign done. He could possibly mount it on 4x4s and then have somebody from highway or take the other posts out and hopefully slip it in. So
Yeah, Pete said that he could help with removing and replacing the 4x4s. They might be in slightly different spots depending on what he finds in the ground, but he's willing to do that just for the cost of 4x4s, of course.
Thanks. Great. Do you have something to say in the audience?
I think you might have covered it, Chuck Gilroy. Yeah, I was involved in the Eagle project when those got tuned up again, and they're amazing signs, and I totally think they should be replaced. My question for Fran is there a possibility of repurposing them for another entrance, or are they pretty?
no, I'm advocating to rehab them, not replace them. If you want to replace them, I think you get into figuring out what you want for a sign. And for rehabbing, it'll be a lot cheaper than try to go out and get a new sign. And the politics of figuring out what a new sign would be something I don't.
Birthplace of Bard Hill. Yeah, they're practically historic elements in and of themselves, at 45 years old, but if they'll stand repainting and filling, To replace them in kind would be pretty expensive these days.
We could put the town population on there and have Josh update it every week.
They did that.
Make it electronic, like a gas pump
The,
for down. Well,
Put it
the
on cal sheet. and
red one
fence.
has been like etched, so the letters are.
that'd be hard. So I say little changes. Unfortunately. Hard.
So I think this makes a lot of sense. I will only point out perhaps as a footnote that when we talked about this once several years ago, the question was raised, do we want other welcome signs into town? So perhaps similar to Fran's comment about if you change the signs, you get into a much longer discussion. If we talked about putting welcome signs somewhere else, we get into the same discussion of how many and where and what would the design be.
That would, by that time, these signs wouldn't be really in bad shape.
It would be nice to have a sign on Huntington, Heinsberg Road that says welcome to Richmond, Selectboard, yeah. But it makes sense to preserve what we have.
I agree.
Is it problematic for anybody that we don't have three competitive bids for this? Is it a trivial amount of money?
I had two questions. One's about the signs longevity and one's about the source of funds. I know like a really small brow roof kind of thing would probably extend the lifespan
Shed water.
by some
Hmm.
order of magnitude. That's something we want to remotely consider, or maybe as a separate discussion at the next meeting while they're getting rehabbed, see if we can put like a 16-inch by 48-inch piece of
Copper.
standing seam on a piece of Doug fir or something over him, or I don't know, copper, gray, leftover donated standing seam, anything, or we just want to put them back up as they are.
I think we should start, this is just my
Should
opinion,
rehab.
start with rehabbing them and then have another discussion about
And then
modifying them to shed water.
do we think that the Special Projects Reserve Fund is the right source of funds?
I have no problem with that.
Or is this money that was allocated for the parks and all that stuff, or is this just the fund more broadly, right?
The 404 that I put in the packet, $404,000, that's money that's in the reserve fund that's not earmarked for parks.
Got it. Okay.
Okay.
Sorry, I always forget that we have part of it that's earmarked and part that's not. So
Right.
this is, okay, I don't want to dip into the parks.
Nope, this is not part of the parks part.
Wouldn't come out of the road budget either. It's directional signage or.
Yeah. But I mean, yeah, it's not really directly road signage, is it?
Yeah, and I mean, I just thought of the special projects fund because that was one of the things that the board had talked about over the years of beautification projects, and the welcome sign specifically did come up a couple years ago. So
There
I
you go.
thought, well,
Here we are.
kudos to Fran for pushing that forward, and let's throw back to previous discussions.
I don't know, having had we had the Richmond Fire Department sign rebuilt by a volunteer, and we provided the parts and the paint. We paid someone to paint it because it was a person, and it cost more than this to have it done by a volunteer. This is a good, just as a
Seems like a very fair.
okay, somewhat gut check. It's a very fair price to have these two rehabbed.
Mr. Chair, this is David. I move to approve up to $1,700 from the Special Projects Reserve Fund to rehabilitate the Welcome to Richmond signs that are located on Route 2 as you enter the village. This will not come from the funds earmarked for the use in the parks.
Is Bart, I'll second that.
Discussion, I'll just point out, I should have read the last sentence of your motion. Sorry. Self-answering question.
I don't want to slow this down at all, but I think it would be reasonable to address the question of rain or weather resistance, some kind of cover to this, and even potentially additional signs at other locations. Those are probably two separate ideas, given the complexity of each, but in any case, I think we should move forward with this one.
Move forward with the rehab. We can talk next in 2 weeks about a roof and or a separate signs as two separate items, so they don't get too intertwined with each other. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah, side question here, is this the one by the fire station?
Yes,
Is that a garden bed underneath it?
it was 4x4s and there used to be flowers there, and there were lilies by the one on the left.
if someone were to go over and clean that out and put flowers in it, does that need to be approved by anyone?
Sounds good, affirm
I think that would be great.
Oh, it'd be wonderful.
Wonder
The
if it's-
Richmond Women's Group, we used to do that, but
I have some
Wonder
folks
if
who
you have
might
a
be
fr- I
interested.
wonder if you have a friend who has a ton of flower beds. And
I have a friend who has a ton of flower beds and also has mentioned that they want to help.
Especially if they're perennials.
Yeah,
all those in favor? Again,
Art, aye.
no discussion.
Caitlin, I.
Greg, aye.
David, I.
Adam, aye. Thank you, Fran.
Thanks, Frank.
Next we have consideration of approving the Chittenden Solid Waste District's proposed FY 26 budget. I think we have Sarah Reeves with us here to do a quick presentation. Sarah, are you online?
You're supposed to, I don't see her. I know she did have another meeting, I think just a meeting prior to this.
Should we just pop onto the next thing and then?
Yeah, I think so. She asked for 7:15, but she might be running a little
Okay.
bit late, so let's go to the next.
We're gonna reshuffle D and E.
Oh, wait a minute. Is that?
No, it's Karina.
I don't know who that is. Okay.
Hi,
Not.
I'm here
Hey,
for
her-
the parade.
We're waiting for someone else to pop in, but we're gonna
Okay.
move on to the parade now. So you're here just in time.
Cool. Sounds
Uh,
good. Yes, we're,
Consideration
Oh,
of
go ahead.
closing I gotta read the item first. Sorry, Karina. Consideration
No
of
worries.
closing Bridge Street for the parade to celebrate Winter Olympians with ties to Richmond on the evening of Thursday, May 21st, 2026. Before it.
yeah, so we have Ben Ogden, who won 2 silver medals in the Milano Winter Olympics, as well as Julia Kern, who was, I think she was 5th and 6th place in the Olympics. They both live here in Richmond. And then we also have Ryan Cochran Siegel, who won his 2nd silver medal this winter, who grew up here, of course. And then we also have Paula Moltzen, who lives in the Valley. And we were hoping to get on the books a day where we can come together and celebrate all 4 Olympians. And we've done a lot of work trying to figure out the best date. And the day that has come together is May 21st. And that has a lot to do with the athletes themselves and just getting all 4 together in one place.
You don't have any questions? I mean, in our packet, we have a ton of info about all the people who were
Other athletes who were
other
active
athletes.
that
Yeah.
same night.
It sounds like a lot of thought's gone into this and planning it out, and also getting all 4 athletes to show up in Richmond at the same time seems like a no small feat. So
Yeah. Yeah, I think we were looking at the 23rd as well. And for some reason, that date didn't work with the town. And then the following weekend as well. And we've been actually trying to plan this since late March. So I think there's been a lot of dates thrown around, but this one, May 21st, the evening of Thursday, May 21st, is the day that kind of, I think, worked best for town and all the athletes together.
Yeah, so the 23rd didn't work because the fire department has a conflicting event. We didn't have any police officers available that day, and they're pretty critical for closing things down. Thursday, I've definitely got some concerns just with additional traffic on a Thursday evening versus like a Saturday or Sunday morning. I think we have 2 police officers available that evening to help with road closures. Fire department will probably be a skeleton crew. They don't usually have a lot of people available midweek, but we'd have a few to close it down. It does involve probably canceling Little League for that night, just because when you close down Bridge Street, you're not going to be able to really get kids over there. So we'll have to cancel a couple games. And then Kimball's Hump, I think they've got at least one event that's going to go probably past 6 o'clock. So getting people out of that event down Bridge Street, if they'll have to wait or go around. So it's definitely a little more complicated than a weekend. It's doable, but I do foresee some challenges. We also have to hustle to get a permit into the state. They said they usually need up to 2 weeks, but the guy was like, well, if you give me a permit today, meaning last week, I have nothing on my desk. Can't tell you what it's going to be like on Tuesday. Hopefully the parade permit turns around fairly quickly, because we do have to post the road for a week leading up to it. I will probably have to stage it on Lemery Court. Last time we did the Olympic parade, we staged it up at the school, which worked out great, but with 3 different athletic events going on up there,
can't do that.
I don't think we're going to want to impose on them. We'll probably go to Lemery Court and then come down Route 2, make a left at the light, and then come down Bridge Street. And I think, did you guys still want to try to do an after party at Volunteers Green then until 8 o'clock?
Yeah, the plan was to do a parade from like 6 to 6:45, and then maybe from 7 to 8:30, we could have some food vendors and a place to meet all the athletes, sign autographs, have all the kids come be able to meet the four amazing people who live in this community.
I mean, this seems like a worthwhile reason to have a little bit of a hiccup in town.
Yeah.
At minimum. I'd be excited to attend it. So I understand there's some concerns, but I'd be broadly in favor. What do you guys think?
I'm very much in favor.
Does anyone in the public have any? Oh, sorry, go ahead.
But yeah, just do we have time to get warning signs out onto the affected streets?
Well, really the ones we have to warn is Route 2. And assuming that the state can turn around a permit for us by early next week, we have to give them a week notice. So by next Wednesday or Thursday, put something up.
So it's tight but doable.
I think so. We have to
Depending.
figure out how to make signs, but we'll figure something out.
And then arguably notify the various athletic participants, the school, little league,
Yeah.
soccer,
Yep.
just so they know. Probably the most challenging thing will be parents not from Richmond showing up, right?
Trying to get up to get their kids picked up or whatnot. But
Anyone have any other concerns, thoughts?
Caitlin, I moved to close Bridge Street from 5:30 to 7 p.m. on Thursday, May 21st, 2026 for a parade to honor Winter Olympians with ties to Richmond.
This is Greg. I'll second that motion.
Thanks so much. It'll be really fun.
Thanks. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Bart, aye?
Caitlin, I.
Greg, aye.
David, I.
Adam, aye. Thanks, Karina.
Awesome. Looking forward to
Thank
it.
you.
We'll see you there.
Okay.
Say that. Everyone will get sick now that I committed to that. But next we have, I don't think we don't have our rep from Chipping Solid Waste on, do we?
no, I don't see
We're gonna
her.
keep going through the meeting, so anyone sees, what was it?
Oh, wait, no, Sarah is here. Sorry.
Oh,
She just logged on. There she is.
perfect. Sarah, how are you?
Hi,
Um,
thank you. How are you?
Let me read the agenda item quick and then we'll turn it over to you. So now we are back to item D, consideration of approving Chittenden Solid Waste District's proposed FY26 budget. And we have Sarah Reeves here to give us a summary or explanation of the budget. All yours,
Very
Sarah.
much.
Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you for your time today. I appreciate it. And I'm going to, let me see, go back here. See if I can share my screen. Show this here. All right. Okay. Hopefully that is working. Great. Thank you again. My name is Sarah Reeves. I'm the Executive Director for the Chittenden Solid Waste District. And we are a municipality chartered in 1987 to manage the waste generated by our member municipalities in Chittenden County. And this is, again, a little snapshot of who we are. And I like to show this, this chart of our revenues to indicate where we do not receive revenue. So we do not receive revenue from our member cities and towns. We are not a line item on your budget, and we don't receive any revenue from income, sales, or property tax. And why we're here is that per our charter, the legislative bodies of each of our member municipalities need to vote on our annual budget. And each select board and city council has the one vote, and they are not weighted by population, so everyone is equal. I am also frequently asked how we're doing. And so of the 318,000 tons that were generated in Chittenden County of all of the solid waste, 124,000 of that was landfilled. And of that chunk, there's a significant amount that could have been diverted. So we have been focusing for the last few years, much of our education, outreach, materials, and education on the food scraps, because it represents such a large amount of the material that is currently still being landfilled and could be diverted. So I did want to kind of address right away the issue that we had a few weeks ago about the fraud incident, the phishing incident. And so it was right after we had worked with our finance committee on our draft budget, and just a few weeks after that, we fell victim to the issue. We lost $3 million in payments that were meant to go to our construction partner. So first thing we did, obviously, before when we found out, called our bank, called law enforcement, and then we set about revising the draft budget. And so we did that. We resubmitted to our finance committee, and the revised budget contained not just avoided expenses, deferred capital, but also a revised revenue expectation to try to hew closer to actuals on all accounts and be a very bare bones budget. So the next steps, and I think this is of utmost importance to you all, is that we are not expecting any of our member cities or towns to bear the burden of closing what is now a project funding gap for our new materials recycling facility. We are still not going to be sending you a bill. We are figuring this out internally. Of the increased revenue generation that we hope will occur in fiscal 27, all of it will be directed to that MRF project fund, which we do anticipate completing in fiscal 27. So we realize that we don't have a lot of room to make up that gap, so we'll likely be seeking a short-term bank loan. I'm anticipating that the recovery to our capital reserve is going to take 2, perhaps 3 fiscal years. We will be basically draining down the non-restricted reserve fund. So we'll be draining down our capital reserve fund. We will be tapping significantly into our operating reserve fund. Right now we carry about 4 months worth of operating reserve. We'll be tapping into that and getting down to about 1 month. We'll be tapping into our solid waste management revenue reserve fund as well. We are not touching the restricted accounts, of which the biosolids reserve is one, the closed landfill, and the facility closure fund. We're also not tapping into our community cleanup fund, but where the unrestricted reserve funds, we will be drawing down on those for, again, the next 2 fiscal years for sure. We're also, as a management team and a finance committee, looking at our current assets. We'll be making some recommendations to the board regarding those. And our finance committee will be reviewing at our next meeting our financial policies and key procedures. And if there are any recommendations for changes to the policies, we'll be bringing those to our board in the next month or so. For our bottom line, again, after the revisions, anticipating our budgeting revenue in the amount of 19.4 million, and subtracting out the cost of goods sold, that is the cost associated with producing compost, producing local color paint. That brings us down to about 19.2 million. Our expenses are down around 16.1 million. And the income from operations before depreciation and transfers is at just over $3 million. And again, the only fund that we are continuing to fund in this next fiscal year is the community cleanup fund. And then everything else that is, again, excess revenue, excess cash is going into the materials recycling facility fund. The zeros don't mean that those funds are being depleted. Those mean that we're not adding or moving any money in or out of those funds. And actually, we are transferring money out of the solid waste management reserve and the operating reserve into the materials recycling facility fund, but we're not adding anything in to those funds this year. They're going to remain at zero funding in. This is just our general snapshot of kind of how our revenue is divided. It's still pretty heavy on tipping fees. Solid waste management fee crept up a little bit. Sale of materials went down a little bit. And our expenses continue to be roughly the same split. Payroll about 40%, materials management 45%, and materials management means hauling. It's what we pay to haulers to move materials, whether it's for disposal or out to market. And this is just a brief comparison this year to next year, and just kind of seeing where the increases are. Again, that revenue change represents cash preserved due to avoiding spending in capital project deferrals. And the expenses comparison. So the expenses are basically being essentially level funded, level expensed to this year. And again, this is representing significant cuts to certain programs, such as marketing, advertising, outreach education, communications, business travel, professional development, and then our operational supplies that are not related to safety. So when we looked at both operations and capital replacement, if it was a safety issue, it stayed in the budget. If it was not preferred, related to safety and could be safely deferred, it is deferred. The big DOC improvement that is not being funded is a Milton drop-off center refurbishment, which is desperately needed. And there's a little bit of money in there for survey work that needs to continue, but it's a very large project, and it just keeps getting kicked down the road, but it is our top priority after the new MRF. We do have some fee changes. So the big news, aside from fraud, is that we are implementing a facility use fee or a gate fee at our drop-off centers of $1 per vehicle. And this is, again, to be used to fund the capital project capital reserve fund. The new materials recycling facility will not be able to add money to the overall general capital reserve fund. This has been known. This is not a new thing. Every bit of money that it generates in revenue will need to pay for its own operational expenses, the debt service associated with that facility, and its capital needs. So we have been brainstorming ways over the last couple of years to adequately fund the general capital reserve fund. And one of the ways that we're doing that is through a vehicle fee, facility use fee at our drop-off centers. And we actually asked our customers for their input on this. We surveyed our drop-off center customers over the course of three weeks in March, and we said, hey, we need to add $1 somewhere. And we have 4 ways that we're thinking about it. Please tell us your opinions and rank your choices. And one of the options was this facility use fee, and the other option was to add $1 to the price of the bags. And the most equitable, fair distribution of the $1 was on each vehicle. And it was pretty much 50-50. It was split right down the middle as far as the preference. But we felt that the $1 per bag would unfairly burden those customers, and whereas the per vehicle fee would capture folks who may only come to us once a year or once every few months, and that would more, again, fairly spread that contribution across all users. We are also going to start charging for leaf and yard debris. This is new. It will be in effect as of July 1, but it won't really kick in until probably September. We are increasing the materials recycling facility fee. That's already in effect. It took effect on April 1. That's going up to $100, or is at $100. We are increasing the compost recycling facility fee, which is going up from $70 to $77. There's no increase at our household hazardous waste facility, the environmental depot, and we are looking to increase the solid waste management fee, which is the fee charged to haulers for all the waste that is landfilled, to $41.92. And that is according to the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics Consumer Price Index for garbage and trash. And we do have a request, motion to approve, if you are able to do that, if it was warned this way, to approve our solid waste district budget for fiscal 27 as presented. And I know that was a lot of information thrown at you in a short amount of time, and happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Bart, thanks for all that. It's a lot to try to fit into a short presentation. I appreciate that. Maybe I missed it. You referred to not contributing more dollars to the various reserve funds. Can you tell us about what the balance is of those reserve funds at this point?
Yeah, so the they obviously fluctuate according to ins and outs. The fund balances as of the end of fiscal 25, so we have roughly $12 million at the end of fiscal 25. That is anticipated to be drawn down to about $8 million, and that's all of the funds. And then by the end of 27, that will be down to just under $2 million for all of the reserve funds. So again, the ones that are not getting touched are those restricted funds, which are the biosolids fund, the landfill post-closure fund. We also have a debt service fund for the MRF, and then a facility closure fund. Those are not being touched, but the ones that are the MRF project fund, which is a temporary one, and when the MRF project is done, that goes away. The capital fund, the general operating fund, and the solid waste management fund.
Thank you.
Anyone else have any questions? Concerns? We'd like to do.
Well, I'm inclined to, approve and let them move forward. I don't want to let it pass without saying something. And, a $3 million fishing hit is a ponderous thing. And just kind of makes me want to ask what we're doing to make sure that we don't get hit with the same thing. But one question I have is was there any kind of insurance in place against this kind of loss? And if not, is that something that should get worked into future budgets?
For you also, for us.
Yes, that was going to be my comment. And my recommendation is, so we are we get our insurance through the LCT, like I'm sure a lot of municipalities do. And this, because it was a phishing scam and it was not a breach, if it was a breach of our networks, the insurance might be different. It was not, because it was phishing. So this is likely not covered very extensively. The dollar amounts, regardless, are very, very low. And they recommend that you have additional supplemental insurance for things like this, which ironically we were looking into at the time. We were reviewing all our insurance coverages as part of our budget preparation. And this was on the list of items to recommend going out to RFP for. And we had simply not gotten around to it. So we have increased that line item in our budget to add supplemental insurance. The barn is out of the horse out of the barn. I would recommend that you also look at your coverages, talk to the folks at the LCT, and talk to the folks that they recommend you may turn to for supplemental insurance, and protect yourself. If you are not doing training for staff on how to spot phishing scams, absolutely do. There are some really good low cost to no cost trainings, and our IT team was again in the midst of upgrading and updating our modules on this when this happened. So you can be trained, and the sophistication is such that it's just getting better and better and better. AI is a game changer, and but have the trainings done, do the trainings, take a look at your supplemental insurance. Likely you'll need another policy, but this was one of the reasons that we pretty quickly after the incident came out and talked about it, because we don't want this to happen to anybody else. It's awful. It's awful.
Thank you.
Thank you. No one else stepping into the breach, I would move that we approve the Chittenden Solid Waste District's proposed fiscal year 26.
I think we 27.
7.
Yeah, I'm just reading the it's in the agenda, it's written 26.
No, it's 27.
Proposed fiscal year 27 budget as presented by the staff.
Oh, it's 26 on that.
I'm looking past just
26 on the memo, but it's 27 on the agenda.
sorry.
My memo says 27.
Your memo title says 26, but the motion says
I'm
27.
looking at the agenda tonight. I'm sorry. I'm looking at the memo.
Oh,
Yeah, there you go.
So
motions.
We have a motion.
I have
Second.
Second, this is Bart.
Motion is second. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Bart, aye.
Caitlin, aye.
Greg, aye.
David, I.
Adam, aye.
Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. I appreciate your time
Thank
and
you.
your questions. Thank you.
I think we have some items for a future agenda.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's remember that at the bottom of the.
Yeah, there's a type of training that you can do that has it sends out like test.
Yeah, we did that. We had 2 years of that training with a company called Know Before. That was set up. It was actually got 2 years free through VLCPO. And they would send out like once every couple months tests, and you had like to click on it or not and get a report on that. And they also had video training on how to spot phishing.
I don't necessarily, sorry, I don't mean tests like that. Those are great.
Okay.
And there's also, our company has, I sent an email over to our IT person the other day and said, hey, this is a new one. I haven't seen this one yet.
Oh, right.
And it was actually her that had sent it out because internally they'll send out like our own
Right.
internal phishing emails to try to get people to, for some of the newer things. And if someone were to engage, then they get a lesson, like a direct lesson, which is, in the moment, sometimes those newer things.
Well, that's what this company was doing, was they would send out tests, and then if you failed, it would send you an email to say, hey, this was a phishing test. Here's the things you should have been looking for in this email that would have tipped you off that this is a phish. So similar idea, just not by a contractor.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I think we want to take pains to insist on multi-factor authentication, firewalling off anybody has access to anything that looks like a bank account.
Yeah, I mean, the good thing is we really don't really pay anything electronically. Like everything's
Yeah.
check.
Right.
Checks. Pretty much all checks. Like we don't really have much that we would be transferring electronically, especially $11 million.
Very opposite of the spectrum, but at Beta, we do not wire money simply for that reason. Everything is a check. You can do it. You can order $100 of this stuff, or you can be paid for $100 million construction project and you get a check.
That's what we do as well.
Yes.
It does go beyond money though. So
There is other stuff.
and sometimes those things can translate into money in one way or another. So especially with a new finance person coming on board, you get to just
Yeah, things like viruses, if you just click on the wrong.
and then all of a sudden someone has access to your full computer and can do whatever they want.
And
Really,
truly
really issue a permit to put those flowers in.
far more sophisticated. For most of my career, the phishing was like laughable, like
Yeah.
grammatical errors and obviously fraudulent email address,
I
and
got one
those
from you the
things
other day.
don't happen anymore.
Did you click on it?
I screenshotted it
That
and I
was
sent it to you.
That was a test.
So if you click on the
Yeah,
address,
someone else said
Adam
it.
Wood. So I clicked on it.
Yeah,
It was
like
some weird
executive
address.
member, whatever. Okay,
But yeah, I bought all the gift cards for you.
nice.
I think Matt's waiting.
We are on to consideration of approving the FY 27 purchase of a police cruiser and accessories.
I'm going to generally recuse myself from police matters, at least for the duration, given my relationship with one of our officers.
Got it.
My family's relationship.
Thank you, Bart.
Good.
For anyone who missed that, Bart has recused himself because he has a family relationship with a current police officer.
Take a
Go ahead, Matt, you want to give us a rundown?
Yeah, so
Josh is pulling up the
yeah,
stuff for us.
sharing it. So I put together a number of different quotes from different vendors in regards to our next cruiser purchase. I was looking to go over those that purchase with you guys, along with, see if you can want to go through and pick up one of our vendors from the quotes that we collected. So to start off with, I'll give you an overview. This cruiser, I was going to update it as a canine car for Duke, honestly. One of the pieces of the equipment that we haven't put into any of our existing cars due to cost was a canine kennel, which is for his safe transport in and around a car if we ever got into a car crash. It'll keep him and myself safe during a car crash incident. That being said, so as the next cruiser comes on board, that it would add in we had to outfit this entire car anyway to add back into the fleet. So we're not eliminating any cars from this one. This would be replacing basically where the Tesla was. So when we had to outfit an entire new car, it's the right time to add a canine kennel in. The length of the car that we would expect would be about a 4-year service life, maybe 5, depends on how long the car lasts and how well it maintains the mileage. Depends on obviously all the road conditions of today. But if we're able to, usually about 4 years, what we're planning on for the cars, and which is also about the rest of Duke's service life, give or take. That'd be put him at 10 years old, 10, 11 years old, and that's probably about his service life. So it kind of matches up well with his service life and the equipment upgrades for the car. So that being said, we're looking at a 2026 Dodge Durango Pursuit, which also would continue with our Dodge Durangos that we currently have.
We have 2 now.
We have 2 Dodge Durangos in the fleet. This will be a third. We went around and grabbed quotes from a number of different vendors. These vendors are not from in Vermont because our local dealerships would have to order one individually, which would be a much higher price.
Okay.
So when I was looking around different vendors, they are all giving us a pretty close or similar pricing. The caveat to that is we have to transport these cars back to Vermont. Most of these prices, except for the last one, quote 4, has those transportation costs included in the quote. So the idea would be these are large scale vendors like the ones from Niagara Falls and Thomas Auto are large scale vendors for police cruisers across the country. Thomas Auto is actually one of the largest ones in the country and have vehicles in stock. So they could, once we approve and
Just like shoot at this.
they can get it out to us probably within a week.
That's like a 2-day drive, though. If you're saying you would send.
Not in the cruiser. Oh, that one.
We would put it on a transport vehicle and have it transported, right?
And that's included.
2 includes transportation, right?
1 and 2 includes transportation costs.
Now, we've purchased cruisers from this place in Niagara Falls before, I think.
I'm not
I think,
familiar with the history, so
I think one of the Explorers came from there.
it might have. They're both pretty well-known dealers for police vehicles.
Is there any reason we wouldn't just go with the cheapest option?
The only one,
I guess knowing that maybe it would be technically the second cheapest option, but it's cheapest one that includes transportation.
the cheapest one that includes transportation. The only reason I'd say between 1 and 2, I have no preference on either one. Quote 2, which is Thomas Auto Group, is the larger of the 2. So we being a single vehicle might not get the same attention that a fleet of like 200 might get.
Do they ship it to an outfitter or do they outfit it locally?
They ship it to an outfitter. So that is in the second part of the quote. I have a local outfitter in Waterville, Vermont, which is Hardwired Electronics. He would outfit the car, which includes all the interior equipment and lights, sirens, everything that we would need would be ordered through him and installed through him. His business is pretty well known in the police world, and he has very good work. He's very responsive with us, and if I ever have a question, he usually lets me troubleshoot it remotely without charging us. So
your total cost all in is like $90,000.
our total cost is actually on the last page is 96,000 and change. but we have our FY27 budget of 105, so we're actually going to be below our.
How does that add up? Sorry, we got the 45 plus.
We have 45 in the vehicle, 46 in the vehicle, 25,000 in vehicle upfit, which is the equipment, the cage, the sensors, the in-car the camera system.
I missed that this still had. Gotcha. Okay.
Yep. New in-car radio, because again, we have to, everything has to be purchased new to fit this car. And then our last piece is the graphics to go on the out to make them know it's us, or we can leave it unmarked. But I think we want people to know who we are.
I mean, Adam and I can do it with a couple of spray bombs.
The graphics is a pretty small line in this budget.
Pick a side and have a friendly competition and fundraiser.
The cruiser price, I wasn't at all surprised about, but the upfitting really shocked me. I did a little digging. Without giving too much information, there's no way we can have municipal cruisers outfitted the way the state does, I'm assuming.
I mean, through their state vendor, like they have a state.
That's not a vendor.
Yeah, it's their own internal,
yeah.
Mechanics and outfitting services, which saves them a lot on the labor costs.
Yeah, it's essentially free.
Yeah.
But that's just a state police thing, right?
Correct.
Yeah. I had to ask.
Yeah, most municipalities use hard wires, and so same does DMV, which is a state program. They'll actually go send their cars to hardwired because the work he does is actually that good.
Yeah, so I was trying to understand why the state price for an outfitted cruiser was so much lower if the actual cruiser price was comparable. So then I was going through the upfitting process and it was clear.
Right, and some of this equipment can be used as long as the Dodge doesn't change their style. This could be used in the next Dodge Durango. So, like, if we replace one of the Dodge Durangos we currently have with another one, a lot of the equipment will transfer over.
So, with one of the older Dodges we have, as long as if they don't change body style or interior fit up, we can
continue to move a lot of this equipment. And equipment like the radio is more like a 10 to 12 year investment, so that can make it probably through 3 cars. Equipment, most of the lights and control boxes can be transferred between cars. It's just a matter of the internal, the partition, this one, the canine cage, but a partition would change based on the size of the car. Trunk sizes, things like that, we might change how the fit up is.
Now, I apologize before I ask this question because far be it for me to tell you what you need for equipment, but I'm just curious, why are you choosing the Dodge over the Ford Explorer?
Part of it's pricing. We actually get a cheaper price on the Dodges. The other part is maintenance. I've had issues personal with the Fords. The Dodges have seemed to work out better for us in general. And I'd also like to keep our fleet all the same.
Yeah.
So that way we have a uniform look, and 2, that it works out that we can transfer equipment. So if one piece of equipment goes down, but I might have a spare from a different car, we can easily replace it.
Seeing the invoices over the years, I've been pretty disappointed in some of the repairs that the Explorers have needed, and Ford acknowledging there's an issue, but not covering it. And we've had to pay big bucks.
Jeff?
Oh, thank you. I'm wondering if you considered purchasing an electric vehicle as a cruiser.
As of for this purchase, no. Part of it is because of sizing in the canine cage. The current electric cars, which won't fit the canine cage, that also can include a prisoner transport system. This one does. So it has a single seat for a prisoner outside of the canine cage, so we can transport both.
So I'd just like to point out that there was a lot of discussion about the Tesla. And the reason the Tesla did not work for our police department was because of its size. For every other characteristic, it did work. For 20,000 miles worth of usage, we saved over $5,000 in fuel costs. And if it were used regularly, the maintenance costs would be less on an electric vehicle than they would be on an internal combustion vehicle. So I would encourage you in not for this one, for your next cruiser purchase, there are many more options now than there were when we originally bought the Tesla. I'm driving an Ionic 5 right now, and it's quite a big car inside. The interior cabin space is quite big. And I know that some police departments around the country are using the Ford Mustang Mach-E as that is an EV that is being used for police departments. And I would encourage you to consider it for the next purchase, if not this one.
Yeah, so right now the other piece of the puzzle is pursuit rated, and there's 3 electric vehicles that are pursuit rated. One is the Ford Mach-E, the other one is the Chevy Blazer EV, and the last one is the Ford Lightning EV, which they're not making any more Ford Lightnings. I think they discontinued that line. But those are the 3 that are currently certified for pursuit rating. And although do not have a pursuit policy, we're not pursuing individuals, we need the vehicles to have that rating, because it lets us get up to speeds to track down any motor vehicle work to high speeds and then come quickly back to a stop, or going code somewhere where we have to travel at higher speeds than the roadways and then slow really quickly if we come across an obstacle. So it's really important to have that pursuit rating where it's been certified. So if an incident did happen, we'll say it's not because of the car. It would be either a driver-related incident or the other vehicles on the road.
Yeah, it's interesting discussion to talk about for our next cruiser, though. If there are, you had mentioned a Chevy Trailblazer,
the Chevy Blazer EV,
and
then the Ford Mach-E are the 2 electric vehicles.
Those are both pretty. I don't know if the Mach-E, I know the Blazer is pretty cost competitive.
I actually don't know the cost at the moment.
We looked recently; they're ballpark the same cost as these MSRP. So
I'd be also curious if they come out with any more hybrid vehicles too.
Yeah,
that would also, because that would help
with a plug-in kind of,
where it would be a middle ground before we get to the full EV too.
How many miles do these have on when you start thinking about retiring them?
We get well over 100,000 miles on these cars.
Yeah, I'm just 2 thoughts that spring to mind. And one is that we maybe ought to reframe our thinking to think that an asset this expensive should last for 5 years instead of 4. But it really just depends on, whether or not you're spending a lot of money on repairs in that 5th year. The other question I had was whether or not you'd ever explored the possibility of leasing.
We have. It didn't work out.
It didn't work out. Okay,
and part of it's the upfit cost, and then we have to take it all out and return it back to.
Yeah. We don't have a radio we can reuse from the current Tesla.
Not one that's up to date with technology. The older ones are actually 2 radios with single bands. This would be a dual band radio so you can talk to both fire, EMS, and police all in one radio rather than having 2 radios. And it also meets our encryption standards that we're moving towards to keep the radios secure while and about when we move digital.
Caitlin?
Couple of questions. First question, which trim level? Are they all the same trim level?
They're all the same trim level. They're all the Pursuit package V8 engines.
V8, okay.
Yeah.
Is there a reason for the V8 versus V6, or does it?
The part of it is the canine cage is going to be heavier.
Gotcha.
And to move it more safely, and especially getting up and down the speeds,
yeah,
the extra power is probably going to need it.
Okay, makes sense. It's not that much of a price difference between the 2. And then the second question I had is, how did you find these options?
Going out and seeking them. I mean,
did you just do broad search, or?
I did a broad search for the vehicles. The other piece, I did reach out to Stellantis, which is the company, the parent company, who connected us with the Massachusetts one, which was a smaller dealership, but would be our most local deal that they would have.
Okay. The only reason I'm asking, this is what I do for work all day, every day. So the reason I'm asking is a lot of dealers are now starting to do free shipping across the country. And so if there's dealers who are out in California or, that area that might have a bigger fleet, Inventory and want to move those more quickly, we might see a little differentiation in price. But it might not be much because these prices are already pretty good, but I was just wondering how much.
Yeah, almost all these prices are within a few $100s. The biggest difference is actually transportation cost.
Yeah, yeah. And some of those do the further across the country, it's just built into their pricing stack. So,
Yeah.
and so for each of these, you mentioned that one of them doesn't include shipping, but the others do. The top four
The
include
top
shipping?
three include shipping. The fourth one did not include shipping, and that'd be one that would be close if we could drive to and pick it up in a day.
Gotcha.
But then it incurs, us driving down and coming back.
And it's $40. $40, you say $40, right?
Yes.
Between that and the next lowest.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you're gonna make that up in the first half hour on the road.
Yeah, exactly.
Cruiser.
And then
15 minutes.
last question here, is there any differences in like the packages that come with them? Not necessarily the trim level package, but any like, do they come with any types of packages outside of that differentiate the different vehicles available?
No, these all come exactly the same.
Exactly the same.
Base. It's basic
Base level base.
base level base. It has the standard things that you need in a car. And they set them up for the police. So they're fairly basic on most of the information because they expect us to put in all the interior stuff that we need. So
The donut holder?
no donut holder, no cup holders either. You have to actually we have to put in our own cup holders.
One.
That's mildly disrespectful.
The donut holder. I love donuts too, by the way. So
And who doesn't?
dude, they're so good.
Yeah.
It's a shame that coffee cup went out of business. 'Cause now we
Yeah.
have cheap coffee.
Do you guys actually know where that comes from and why?
No.
So Dunkin' Donuts back in the 50s and 60s would allow officers to give free coffee and donuts because they just want officers there to protect them. So you always saw an officer there getting coffee and donuts for free.
Hooked.
And so that's how that joke came around.
I got a real tidbit to add to that. My grandpa was owned the Best Eaten Donuts, which is like one of the two that merged to make Dunkin' Donuts, and he always used to tell us that he would give free coffee and donuts to the cops in Fall River, Mass.
Yep.
So there you go.
Checks
out.
True how that's
I never got free donuts out of it, but
When you're a certified officer, I mean, you gotta put your dues in. You're not just getting that
used to
free.
literally make us pay for it when we came with my parents.
Family, it's not a family benefit, it's just for the officer.
Exactly.
I guess the bottom line on this is you are below our budgeted amount,
Mhm.
Yeah.
and we probably should go ahead and authorize this purchase, right?
Yeah, sorry, did I miss at the beginning? You said one of these can be outfitted and given to us immediately, not having,
It sounded
are they
like
all being outfitted?
Almost.
By,
All of them can be except for quote 4, which that's one they had to get brought to their local dealership before you pick it up. All these have vehicles on the lot ready to go.
So all the first three,
Gotcha.
the time it would take would be the processing time for them to get it on a truck and get it to us.
Pretty
Yeah,
much.
And the outfitting time would be, doesn't matter where the car comes from.
Right. And I've told all these companies that we're looking for a July 1 or later purchase.
So option 4, they'd have to get the vehicle from option 1, 2, or 3.
Probably.
they transfer it.
They transfer it over.
Well, if you've ever been to Indiana, this is what they do.
Yeah.
School buses, RVs,
RVs, yeah.
mile after mile of huge
White
dealerships.
F-250s and F-350s.
Yeah.
You ever see them go down the interstate with a chassis with a milk crate for a driver's seat, a steering wheel?
So I guess, I mean, I don't have any loyalty to any of these three huge dealerships.
sorry to interrupt you.
So go ahead.
I don't have any loyalty dealers either, and I also think the draft motion, you might want to, I don't know, if you go with quote 2, and then they throw you something else, and we've said, this is the one that you can buy, because we have from whichever dealership name in there, it might be beneficial to say from a dealership. I don't know.
In the
We can
motion?
make that more. Yeah, we can make
Not
that more
specify the
ambiguous.
dealer.
Not specify the vendor.
Yeah.
I was just thinking, we're gonna
Up
approve.
to-
we're gonna
Up to
approve the
an amount and then say,
Authorize money to buy a cruiser.
right.
Yeah.
Certain amount of money to buy this cruiser. But
And then
go-
with that, I would love the VINs for each of those and some more details on.
Okay.
Nitpicking though, are there tax implications to out-of-state purchases?
We should
No.
be tax exempt still.
Okay, all right.
Right. We should build it, and I'm sure they're comfortable. That paperwork's probably well.
I mean, as an individual, if I brought a car in,
Yeah.
yeah, I'd have to, I'm just wondering. Okay.
Josh, can you just scroll down to the bottom line again?
Well, let's see, you're looking for a final number.
Yeah.
So which quote do you want to go with?
I guess we'd do two, right?
Two.
The cheapest one that includes shipping.
So all the outfit is 50,191.71 plus 45,248. That gets us to 95,439.71.
Okay.
And then there's a $2,000 contingency that chief built into this. Yeah, so I think if you did 95,000, or if you wanted to,
Not to exceed 97.
Can we do not
Did
get
97 would
800
probably-
and just,
Okay, so there's a buffer in there. Okay.
yeah, there is a $2,000 on the purchase orders part of it. We put a $2,000 buffer in case there were things that went over. I think that the vehicle pricing is pretty.
Vehicle pricing is pretty firm. It was more of like,
Radio or
the radio comes in a few dollars difference because it's now a new fiscal year.
Yeah.
Um,
I know they arbitrarily.
yeah, and most of these quotes were good for 30 days. So it's one of those where they're going to probably give me this exact same pricing in 30 days. But
we can't give them money until next FY.
That's why I was going to try to start the process with them to get it locked in.
Locked in, yeah.
But I wanted to get your approval before I started doing any of that.
yeah, which is where I want to be a little bit flexible and make sure that you have the ability to kind of work between a
Yeah.
couple of these. And I don't think I would be comfortable with quote 1 and 2 and pursuing those. And then going from there, I think quote 3 is high for who knows what reason. And then quote 4, not including shipping, just doesn't make sense.
Logistics man, but yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, we can requote this June 1st theoretically too. And
Yeah.
we would know then what the actual numbers are, right?
But this would give you the chance to
You can run with it, and then on June 1st, if you requote it and it's for some reason drastically off, we can talk about it then.
Okay.
I mean,
It'll be cheaper because no one wants V8s with gas prices where they are.
Maybe.
I doubt it.
the vehicle prices are gonna stay the same.
the same.
It's the upfit, it's the graphics, it's the radio, it's those types of things
Sure about
that
that?
might change a little bit.
Well,
That's what
hopefully.
he was saying that.
Yeah.
Hopefully, yeah.
That's where if like
Find out.
graphics change by $50, I don't want
Okay, so $2,000 seems like a reasonable.
Yeah.
That's within
Yeah.
my comfort zone of what's a reasonable contingency on all this stuff, and any more than that, we should probably chat about it.
Yeah.
So I move to approve purchase order number 5402 for the purchase of a cruiser and for various vendors for the cruiser accessories in an amount not to exceed $97,439.71.
Wait a minute, where are you getting the 97?
That's the 95 plus the 2,000
I think the
contingency.
95 included the 2,000 already.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, so the number I got was 95. Yeah, the 2,000 had already included. on the-
It's already, okay. So I amend my
Wait, that's for the
motion.
lowest number, right? Of the vehicle cost? That was for the 94.
So the 90, so let's see, yeah, that was
Yeah,
for,
there's still $2,000.
Okay,
So
I thought it was 95. and
yeah,
then
so
we-
that was the 40, that was the 45,248, which is the lowest delivered. And then when you add in, we go to the purchase order, because I think we scanned that in here as well, right?
Okay, so I'll amend my motion in an amount not to exceed $95,439.71.
We have an amended motion.
I will second the amended motion.
Discussion? Further discussion?
So Matt, thanks for doing your homework on this. I know when we had our first two explorers, there were a number of incidences of officers and other municipalities reporting carbon monoxide poisoning, and we
Mhm.
checked our cruisers with the fire department, and 2 of the 3 had unsafe carbon monoxide levels. These were brand new cruisers.
to.
So we brought them back to Heritage, and Heritage said, yeah, you're right. And we had to pay $4,800 per cruiser to fix Ford's mistake.
Mhm.
And the first cruisers, the taillights kept burning out, but it was a module, LED module. It was $480 every time. This was on new cruisers.
I know.
So, as they were aging, of course, we were putting a lot of money in suspensions and brakes, but you expect that. But I was really annoyed that we had to spend thousands of dollars to fix new
Brand new
vehicles.
cars, yeah. And hopefully we can avoid that. Yeah.
I just want to say, don't let me slow you down, but if you want to send me the VINs, I can maybe find out a little bit more about them and just make sure there's nothing they're not saying.
Yeah.
They're not flooded cars from Houston.
Let's not forget to vote.
It's true. We still have to vote. We're all done with the discussion?
Yep.
All those in favor? Or sorry.
Caitlin, I.
Greg, aye.
Yeah.
David, I.
Adam, aye.
Part of the state.
RJ can come back now.
Just a quick mention on Wednesday, we swore Chief in. It was a very nice event. You missed it, yeah.
I wanted to be here, but I was stuck at work.
Adorable family and
Get to meet his
a
family.
big crowd of people.
I got to meet them.
Big crowd of people
Yes.
came. So anyhow,
That's great.
I'm sorry I missed that. I meant
Thank you, Chief.
to be there. I had a little bit of a crazy life lately.
Well, we get to keep working with Matt.
Yes.
For a few more agenda items.
Yeah, we got more to go.
An update on parking enforcement plans on the end of Cochran Road, West Whitehill, and Dugway Road. So I know we had a few amendments to our traffic ordinance. One of the amendments this winter was to allow for changes in the parking ticket amount, among others. You want to give us an update, or
I can sort of start with it. So, yeah, since the last meeting, we went out, we sort of formed a subcommittee of myself, Chief, Pete Goslin, we had Chuck Gilroy and Diane Mariano from the Parking Advisory Committee as well. And we figured the best way to figure this out would be to go physically drive around and take a look at the sites where the high fine zones are, because as we started to look at maps and talk about, well, where should we put signs, it pretty quickly ballooned. So driving through and looking at existing signage, and that helped us really focus in on what should the signs say, how often should they be out there, where should they be, and here's what we came up with. So I'll share a screen. And I want to thank everybody. It was a great working group, and I think we did hopefully good work. We'll find out here what the select board's feedback is soon. Oh wait, am I already sharing? No, I'm not sharing. All right.
did you guys make that sign?
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
a little help from AI, right?
Yes, AI helped.
It's beautiful.
So
Helping people creating efficient phishing scams and.
Did we test the QR code? Because that's kind of.
we have tested the QR code. So
Just sends the money to someone.
Nigeria.
so when we started looking at this, we started looking at the whole area. Like we talked about, do we just do it at the entry points? Do we just do it? Where do we do it at certain spots? And so we looked at, where does existing say no parking? We want to make sure that we replace some of those signs with this. We want to make sure that we add these signs to certain spots. So like on Dugway Road, we have one sign where it's no parking on this side of the road. So in those spots, this will go underneath that sign to say, and if you park here, it's a high fine zone. We deliberately steered away from the exact dollar figure, because if that changes in a year, we don't want to go replacing 42 signs. We also found strategic spots.
Mine sounds much more ominous than like $150 too.
Yeah. So once you click, so it says no parking on the travel portion of the roadway. So that's defined as where the travel portion is, and then no parking where posted. So there are certain areas, like on that part of Dugway, where we don't want you parking there at all. So in both instances, you're getting towed potentially and a high fine. This QR code then goes to this landing page, which John Cohen really did up for us nicely. He highlighted the high fine zone area here in yellow. This orange strip is the no parking zone at all on Dugway Road. So it really shows you exactly where you are not allowed to park. It talks about how much the high fines are, the $150 in the yellow zone, $50 everywhere else. And then this parking map, everywhere you see a P, it will show you other places that you can park in town. So sort of going with the adage of, you can't do that here, but here's where you can, to try to help people figure out where they can park. And so we've added that on here as well. Where we're able to park. So this is a summary. We have 42 new high fine zones signs, 2 specialty order signs over by the Dugway or the gorge. There's an area where it's emergency parking. We want to keep that clear at all times. So it's going to say no parking between these signs. There's enough spot for an emergency vehicle or an ambulance to pull over there. We've got 10 brand new signs going in. That's the dig safe areas. So to sort of give a bit of a overview. So this is over Rutgers entrance. These maps are a little funky, but they were the best thing we could do operationally, so we knew where we were going to go. So over Rutgers entrance, everywhere you see an N sign is a new sign. U means it's a new sign going underneath an existing sign. So we've got a couple down here as you first enter the zone in Cochran's. Then over by the, just to try to make sure, there's not a lot of problems on Cochran Road, but we did sporadically add a few more. So this is by the horse farm on Cochran Road. This area gets really busy with signs. It's already busy with signs. This is near the Huntington River and the Cochran River, or Winooski River, where intersects here with Route 2. So we've got a lot of signs already. A lot of these U's are going underneath existing no parking signs to indicate that, there's additional high fines. Coming out on Dugway Road, again, you see a lot of the U's where we're already going underneath signs or we're replacing signs that say no parking and towing with the high fine zones. Traveling up Dugway or West White Hill, this is the end of the high fine zone, so we're putting one there, which indicates that you start the high fine zone in this section. And then a little bit more of Cochran Road, and then as you continue to travel out, you get over here more closer towards the gorge. So again, more high fine zones there and more high concentration of signs because we have a lot more trouble in that area. And then traveling south on Dugway, we're continuing to have more signs placed under signs. And then as we get down towards this area, this is where the no parking zone sort of starts to leave off a little bit, but we still want to indicate you can't park on the travel portion of the road all the way out to the intersection here with Huntington Road. So in all, again, 42 new signs, 2 new signs with no parking between these roads, between these signs. I think we've got a pretty comprehensive plan for signage.
Or, so maybe I'm confused, but I was looking at the hand drawn sign where it's yellow everywhere, apparently, except for the one parking spot upstream of the gorge, the blue dot. That would lead me to conclude there's no parking anywhere other than that parking lot. And if that were true, then all the signage should be a lot simpler.
No.
Maybe that's not true.
There's no parking on
So
one side of the road, right?
So the high fine zone is the yellow on the map. So you're allowed to park in these areas where you're off the road and in a legal parking area. The orange on the map is no parking at all, but we can change that to make that a little more descriptive.
So that leads me to my other observation that if we're spending a lot of time telling people where they can't park,
Just tell them where they
do
can.
we have signs telling where they can park?
That's where QR code comes in. So the QR
Well,
code gets them.
I understand, but you got to look up a code to say where you can park, but all these other signs tell you where you can't park. That seems kind of skewed in the wrong direction.
Well, the problem we're trying to solve is people parking in the wrong spot. So we skewed
Yeah.
heavily on don't park here, you're getting a fine. And if you want more information on parking, scan this code and we'll tell you where to park.
And what's enforceable on my end
Yeah.
is telling people what they can't do and notifying them this is where you're going to be in violation. So, we directing them to another point is a lot harder for a sign, signs that we can put up comparatively to you can't park between these two signs. You can't park on this side of the roadway. You can't park in the middle of the road. If I say that, just the signs being up, as long as they're appropriately done, I can even do a state statute saying, you failed to obey the traffic control device of the sign. You parked in the wrong spot. Let alone our own internal, we don't get the money back from those. If we handle our own parking violations through the ordinance, these are enforceable signs that we can bring in the ordinance.
I'll just say I'm still troubled by the idea that in my experience in interacting with humans, it's effective to tell them not just what you don't want them to do, but what you in fact do want them to do.
We'll say everyone I grew up with or know, or all the children I know now that are only repeatedly told what they can't do are just really sneaky at doing what they can't do. If you tell them what they should do instead, a lot of the kids are so eager to do what they want to do. And I don't think adults change that much for kids. I know I haven't. And I don't think I'm the least mature person to say how we figure out. I think this is all great. We should explain people clearly where they shouldn't park and what the consequences of doing that are. We should also find a way or clearly point them towards where they should park. So when they park in front of it, there's no QR code, there's no service, there's no, my T-Mobile doesn't have service, I couldn't find it. Caitlin?
Yeah, maybe if we have one centralized place, but like the parking here is so bad and it is so dangerous that I'd rather be on the like,
Don't do this.
either don't park
I mean,
here because you don't understand it.
Agree. I would say that from the perspective of we've been learned about with our four-way intersection, I've never heard of a single accident or pedestrian or bike accident here. So we would say it's dangerous. I agree.
But
It's been an incident.
Yeah, there's been incidents there though, and if the fire trucks can't get through when something happens like that, like that's the problems I'm thinking of. Like, that could be the difference between someone being okay and not.
Jerry and then Patty.
Living on Dugway Road,
Oh,
I'm gonna say 95% of the people that go in the summer are stagers.
Yeah.
Just, they don't care. They park where they want to park and they do what they want to do. You see them walk up and down the road. And they don't care, it's not their land, so just my 2 cents.
It's true.
Patty?
You just have one question and a comment. I want to hear what the answer to the question is first up. So are there more places that we should not park than places that we can park? And just in terms of like space, are there, is like 85% of Cochran Road not parkable and 15% is? Like, what's that ratio? I'm just curious. Dugway.
Well, let's on Dugway, roughly the spaces that are completely off the travel portion of the roadway, roughly 50 car parking spaces across the entire length of that road.
Yeah.
We during the warm days have over 100 cars down there.
Right.
So there's more usage than there is space for them to be legally.
Yeah.
So then they start parking illegally, and we start having the traffic issues of, we're down to one lane, cars going head on with each other. Most of the time they're going slow enough that they avoid each other. But now we'll think about, cruisers, emergencies when we do have an emergency up at the gorge, which happens multiple times a year that we have some sort of emergency at the gorge. We need to get those emergency vehicles up there.
I have been swimming on the Huntington on Dugway Road for 40 years. And there I can show you where I think are the places that are where you're off the road. There are only so many spots, like you say. And I think I know where they are. They're not marked. I think I've tried really hard to get my tires off the road, but I guess I'm kind of agreeing with Bart here in that it's not clear what is the ribbon part of the road mean, exactly. Like, I look for tire tracks, like am I off the road? I think it'd be great if we had some, maybe you'd have a stick at the beginning, like when you go up. When you head off the road on Dugway Road, before the first big swimming hole, there's a place to park on the right, and there's a place to park on the left, and then there's no more spaces. Maybe we come up with some kind of way to go between the two green sticks you can park.
So
between these two green sticks you can park.
I know that Chief and I proposed that, I think, last year. We went out and drove down. We said, okay, if we put parking, yes, between these signs, parking only where it's signed, but everywhere else you can't park, between these signs you can. We came to the select board, we talked about it. The parking advisory committee wanted to talk about it. They didn't like that idea of having it signed in between signs. They talked about it for a couple of months. They came back with this idea. The select board talked about this idea. This is the idea we landed on. And so this is where we're at right now. I don't disagree with you. I like the idea, but the parking committee didn't like it. And neither, I think, in communication with the residents, because they're trying to take into mind people that live on Dugway Road. How much signs do they want? What do they want put up there? What has worked in the past? What doesn't work?
They want nobody.
So that's where I think that's where we came up with this. This is where we came up with trying to do this and using the QR code, like putting the full interactive map. Like you can't do that, but if you click on that QR code, you are going to find a plethora of places to actually go park.
Yeah. I think the Bard kind of said the elephant in the room, which is if you talked to, especially as you get further up Dugway Road. And as Jerry has said, it's frustrating in the summer, and I understand that. A lot of the safety concerns that are raised are really a red herring for, I don't want these people on my road in the summer, which I get the frustration, but I mean, it's just tough to have these conversations when people won't come out and say what their real concern is, which is they just don't want the people there. And I get it. I don't think that's, if I lived there, I'd probably feel the same way, honestly. It's a tough conversation to have when we're trying to like frame it as a safety concern or a accessibility concern when the real predominant concern is not driven by those factors. Online, we have John. Go ahead.
Hi, it's John Rankin, a member of the Parking Advisory Committee. I won't say that having park here signs wouldn't work, but I do recall that a few police chiefs back, it was attempted and the signs were vandalized. So that does make it harder to do it that way. Perhaps it's possible.
That is frustrating. Aaron.
I would love to volunteer the Johnny Brook Road trail. We have a little driveway behind our house that leads to the Johnny Brook Trail. We would love one of those signs there to have parking enforced. It's a really dangerous spot with the corner headed up Huntington Road, and we see probably between 10 and 15 cars pull in there to leave their bikes every day and then pull out on that blind corner. And we would love to have one of those signs there or some oversight, because it's just really dangerous, and it's not meant for parking. It's meant for the bikes to get down in there or walkers.
Yeah, I can talk to Pete about a sign there. We can't put a high fine zone sign there because that's specific for the high fine area.
Make it a high fine. I don't mind.
Well, and I also don't think it's in the ordinance there for no parking
On Johnny Brook Road?
if they're off.
If they're off the road. That's a good point too. We may not be.
This is like right behind our house on Huntington Road, not the Johnny Brook side.
But even there, it's
technically a trail, isn't it?
It's a trail.
Class 4, right?
Right.
But it's not a.
Yeah.
It's not defined in our ordinance for.
You're talking right here, right, Aaron?
Yeah, right behind our house.
Well, wait.
Yeah, right there. You're correct.
Right by the turn off the Johnny Brook Road, right?
Yeah.
But your house is more down here.
I think we're getting a little sidetracked here.
Yeah, you might be getting sidetracked, but I guess I didn't understand the ordinance, but we would be happy to have a sign there.
I think that's a good point. We should bring it up. I think we also got sidetracked on our actual Cochran Road.
So maybe that's a separate future issue if there's something to do with that spot.
So
yeah,
that's totally fine.
We don't take any we don't take any action on this. The signs are
ordered. They're coming.
Open discussion and all that. So
let us know how it works.
Oh, I'm sure we'll hear.
Get us some data.
We'll have parking tickets.
Parking ticket data for you.
How many million
data
need to turn it into data? If every person in Richmond has 1,000 anecdotes, that might be data.
Maybe.
All right. We are going to move on to the next agenda item now, which keeps us with Chief Cohen.
Yes.
Next, we have a follow-up on the discussion with Police Chief Matthew Cohen regarding the Richmond Police Department's role if there were to be a protest regarding an action by ICE agents. This is a follow-up to, I think it was about a month ago, approximately.
Correct. Just about a month ago now.
Chief Cohen had come in and talked to us about what people's rights are in those situations, what he's legally allowed to do and not do. And then we had kind of said we would come back and discuss maybe not a policy, but some further direction or expectation for the community of what Cohen and the entire force's response in said situation would look like and what the community expects out of that. So here we are. Would you like to start?
Yes, I'm just going to see if. Let me check on.
It should be. I don't got it.
All right.
There you go.
It's coming up. There you go. That'll work. So after speaking with a number of our community members, including members with the Richmond Racial Equity, and reviewing our fair and impartial policing policy, which I'll refer to as the FIP, because we make it a little easier. I came up with this guide for our officers to what happens if we come across an ICE-related incident and help them make decisions when it comes to the direction of our department. So if they're out solo, if I'm not there, or directions I would be giving them. So I kind of wanted to touch base on a number of different issues. The first one is our department cannot interfere or obstruct federal agents who are acting under federal authority. So that's one of the biggest feedbacks I heard was, can you come and stop them? The answer is no, I cannot. We can't interfere with the federal agents. But the other piece of this is that we're also not going to assist them in any way. I think I covered further. Yep. So this is where we're not going to be assisting ICE in any of their enforcement actions, including the execution of a federal judicial warrant. So you saw on March 11th, the federal agents went and got a federal warrant, and state police and other agencies partially or fully assisted, depends on how the investigations come out, in the execution of that warrant. So that's one of the directions we will not be assisting as a department, any federal agent, any ICE related enforcement actions. I do have some caveats just to make sure it's clear on our end for the interactions that officers may have that fall within the FIP policy that we're allowed to engage with. And this is like if a Richmond officer independently interacts with an individual separate from an ICE related incident, but we find out they have a federal warrant, which might be an immigration warrant, we have to comply with that warrant. We can't just let them go. Which then would mean once we put them into custody, either transporting them to a detainment place, which is around here is Northwest Correctional Center, or contacting the local border patrol for them to take custody of the individual. And same would we if the department is subject to any federal judicial warrants. So if we have documents or they want to come into the police department and we tell them no, which is what we're going to do, they can go get a warrant and order us to open our doors and let them search our or produce our documents, and we would have to comply with those warrants. So that's just some of the legal standings that we have to kind of follow. So I wanted to make sure those were clear in that sense. Also with the, but in general, if there's an ICE related activity, we're not engaging. We're not helping. We're not being part of those activities.
I have a question.
Yes.
I guess I wasn't aware that you didn't have the discretion to ignore a federal warrant for immigration. That makes sense because it's a federal warrant. What does that look like? Do you have like insights into it being an immigration-based warrant versus any other federal warrant?
Most of the time, we won't get that until we actually physically see the warrant in hand.
Just know that there is a federal warrant under this name, and that's it.
Correct. So it'd be something like the practical matter is let's say we come to a car stop, and the driver of that car, when we run their name to check out, make sure the license is valid, also gets an alert that they have an active warrant. We will then get a confirmation through a dispatch that warrant is still active. And as soon as that is taking place, we take the person into custody. Once they're in custody, we will get a copy of the warrant sent to us during processing, where we find out what the warrant's for. And in that case, that's when we say, okay, that warrant is for a federal immigration issue, but it's a federal warrant. We can't ignore it. We then continue that processing, which then brings them to the holding center.
Gotcha. We're like federally compelled to
comply with it.
Aid ICE in doing their job by function of you doing your job the right way, how the system is put together. There's no way around it. Like, you don't know what you're getting into. It could be a federal warrant for committing multiple murders in multiple states, or it could be an immigration warrant. And you have no idea, generally speaking, until you get them in the car. You've already established that there's a warrant. You've taken them into custody, and then you get a copy of the warrant and you say, oh, shoot.
But either way, I still can't.
And then you already have them in custody, so you can't just let them go.
And I couldn't let them go even if we knew ahead of time that was a federal immigration warrant.
But there's a big difference between a judicial warrant and an administrative
Yes.
warrant.
Correct.
Yeah, I was
A
gonna ask.
detainer versus a warrant.
And there's a huge difference between storming a building and taking somebody out who has no warrants
Correct.
and exercising a real judicial.
This is a pretty specific scenario. It's much narrower than I think a lot of the scenarios that we have. On the spectrum of immigration enforcement, this is a very controlled, what's the right way to put it? Calculated long-term approach to a specific individual. And some of the other situations we have seen that are, stand out in our mind much more are not calculated. They're not to a specific individual necessarily, and they are not done with the same legal
authority
and backing.
And at the same time, we can't ignore that authority because then we would be held in contempt of that order.
Sorry, can you go back up a little bit?
I mean, it does make sense. There are, as much as we want to push back on any authority, not necessarily, I speak for myself when I say any implementation of the current ICE and immigration policy, there are situations in which someone having a federal immigration warrant does warrant the exception. I mean, there are people who actually do pose a danger and could have a federally issued warrant. It's tough to, I guess we could debate the merits of who's issuing those warrants now and what the political motivations are, but that's a different situation than ICE agents.
Correct. And it would be something that officers who are engaging with the individual would have no knowledge or discretion on anyway. So they're not individually targeting someone because they have an active immigration warrant. This is someone that they've come into contact with independently in a different aspect of engaging with our Vermont laws, which then we found out that they now have a warrant. And it'd be no different. Wouldn't be any different if this was a Vermont-based warrant, federal warrant. As soon when the warrant's issued, we were compelled to act on it.
Again, the question. I mean, so in a scenario, you pull a car over for a motor vehicle violation, and there's 3 passengers, and you're writing that one person a speeding ticket.
Right.
You'll run the driver's name.
Right.
But the 3 passengers, you're going to ignore like you would ignore on any traffic stop, unless they're doing something
Unless there's other specific reason to run their name, yes. We can always ask for identification for individuals. Now they don't have to comply. The only one that has to comply is the operator who is in violation of the law. But example would be, let's say we are driving down the road and I see the rear passenger window opens up and a soda can comes flying out. Stop it for littering. Littering is that I'm not actually stopping the driver now, I'm actually stopping the rear passenger who threw that bottle out. So I'm actually trying to engage with the rear passenger of that car. So that'd be a time where the passenger is the subject of the stop and not the driver. And a driver doesn't have to provide information, but the passenger does. Think about that.
This doesn't.
These are the nuances of my job.
Crap, my theory that with my kids, I'm like, if you do anything wrong in the car, it comes back to me. So don't mess up.
Not everything comes back to the driver. Most things
Good to
do.
know. Good, get out. Have fun.
There's very few passenger related issues that would go back to the passenger. It's typically littering, consuming alcohol in the car. And especially if they're underage. Those are really the biggest ones that would.
Do we have a policy around asking for identification if there's not a specific reason? It seems like we, might inadvertently create not a dragnet. That's we don't want to sweep anyone up in this and create an obligation to enforce anything if we don't have to, if there's not a specific reason. So do we have a policy around asking for identification?
We do.
If it's not to, obviously if there's a specific person you are trying to work with on a crime that's been committed, then you have to do what you have to do. But if we are asking for identification, people are willingly provide it, and then we use that to even accidentally enact some type of immigration. So
in general, yes, the policy is that we are only asking for information from individuals involved in the offense or the suspicion of a crime. So the caveat, I don't want to do a general policy, because let's say we do a stop and we think there's drugs inside of a car, but there's 4 people in that car. And no one wants to give us consent to search the car, but we have probable cause now to seize said car, and everybody inside that car is a suspect. We're trying to identify all 4 people in that car, all 3 people in that car before they leave, because they're going to be able to leave while we're holding on to the car waiting for a warrant.
And so only the driver will be obligated to stay or to.
No, he's free to leave as soon as he's identified. He's free to leave, or she will be free to leave. And same with the passengers. And on that case, passengers would not be required to provide identification.
But you ask.
We would ask for it anyway.
Yeah.
Because they're a suspect of the crime, and we would have to go back if they choose not to. We document them as best we can. Body cameras are great now to allow us to do that, and then go try to identify them in other ways. As part of that investigation. But
Caitlin,
we can dig in.
I want to see the rest of this too, but I also want to note here, did we specifically call out that we will not enforce civil immigration detainer or warrants? Or is it more so that we'll only enforce
I just said we would not be assisting ICE in any of the enforcement actions, as more of a broad topic to say we're not. I'll try to keep it broad to address as many issues as possible while giving as much of the nuances that come into law enforcement they're able to be addressed here.
Is that inclusive enough and clear enough around we don't allow ICE into the Richmond PD facility at all to meet with individuals that we've already that we may have in
Custody.
Custody,
yeah. And that's, I didn't put it directly in here, but I did say we'll follow the fair and impartial policing policy, which it's in there.
Okay.
Got it.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
Yes. Our governing policy.
Yeah,
Our overall governing policy. This is more for a guideline.
Yeah, okay,
for
and that is really clearly in the.
Yes. It's
Yeah, it is, it's
it
it says, agency members shall not hold for or transfer people to federal immigration agents unless the federal agents provide a judicial warrant for arrest. An immigration detainer, clearly identifies the form, is not a warrant, it's not reviewed by a judge, and so forth. There's a lot here, and it's.
So that addresses the D of A. What's it called? So what's the non-judicial warrant?
Detainer.
Detainer.
Or the administrative warrant says the other.
It's called that in there as
It is, yep. Okay.
I'm gonna move on to protesting. Should a protest arise in Richmond, we would respond to the protest and prioritize public safety, protecting and enforcing citizen rights, which include private property owners' rights. One and the other one is to maintain open roadways for vehicle traffic. And the open roadways is the one, there's a caveat to that where it also depends on what road. Depot Street, if we close down Depot Street because there's a bunch of people on it, what's the huge effect? But if it's Route 2 at 5 o'clock, well, now we got to keep that roadway open. Is it Railroad Street and the ambulance are trying to get out? That's another one. Like there's some roads that we probably need to keep. We make sure we maintain them being open. Where other ones we can probably say, hey, we can easily close this road as minimal effect on the area. I kind of think to that as more of if a flood happens, we'd close the road for a flood. We would find other ways around, and we'd work through it when the flood recedes. We open the road back up. It's kind of similar to that.
The depth of that metaphor, I think, goes beyond.
I know it does. But one of the things I want to make sure it's very clear, we're not aiding ICE if we are keeping a roadway open and the ICE vehicles drive on the road. Like that's part of our job is to enforce Vermont law. One of the laws is keeping our roadways open to vehicle traffic, and that's what we'd be enforcing, not engaging in ICE related activities. This is the other one where this one's going to probably have us dig a little deeper, but I'm not going to deploy our officers as a barrier between protesters and ICE. So if there's an ICE related incident and ICE is conducting operations, our officers are not going to be that barrier in between ICE and protesters if the protesters arrive. Now, this is where my caveat to this is, if private property owners are requesting us to enforce protesters to remain off their property, we might have to be enforcing Vermont law of trespassing. And that's where I would have to deploy, because ICE is not going to enforce Vermont private property owners' rights. So my two examples on this is property A is a subject of an ICE operation. The neighboring property, which is property B, they don't want anyone on their property. We deploy our officers to property B, which might put us where we tell protesters, you need to stay off property B, because that's their property and private rights.
How do you deal with the right of way on the property, private property versus the public right of way?
So if it's our public roads and public right of way, it usually it's up to the improvements of the roadway. Even though we might have an extra 20 feet into that space where the right of way is, most of the improvement roads, what's public land, is, even though there's a right of way, it's not actually the public space beyond the improvements of the roadway.
Okay.
So
the right of way might go 10 feet off the road, but you're considering the fog line, the boundary.
It'd be the improvement, so it'd be include the road shoulder, the breakdown lane, and any of the shoulders, sidewalks.
A fog line and 3 inches of asphalt.
But it might even be it would be the sidewalk and the space between the sidewalks and the road sometimes.
But not the 10 feet of lawn.
Correct.
Right.
Most people are compliant, though. If a uniformed officer who's being polite says you got to keep it on the sidewalk,
Yeah,
that's not confrontational. That's
Right. And most of the people that in protests I've worked, having a good conversation ahead of time with protest leaders is usually a good place to start, to then say, hey, here's some spaces that are 100% safe for you guys to be on. Here's some spaces that private property owners don't want you here. Please, respect that.
Yeah.
And most of the time it was a positive conversation and productive conversation, and we usually make it through, make sure everyone's rights are upheld, and we move forward peaceful. Very few, sometimes they'll actually tell us, hey, we have 3 people who plan on getting arrested today. It's like, okay, it happens. I mean, and because that's part of their protest is to get arrested, and that's so a lot of times it will go fairly well if we have those conversations. My other caveat to this is the example of property A is a subject of an ICE enforcement action, and that property owner, one, doesn't consent to it, so the ICE agents have seized the property and are applying for the warrant, and the property owner does not want protesters there either. So that same property doesn't want anyone at their house.
Mhm.
ICE would have the ability to be doing their operation, because that's part of their rules and regulations, what they're allowed to do. But we would be requested to enforce the trespassing issue if anyone were to be coming onto that property. So that's the most challenging one. Of officers would be really on the line for the property owner to keep individuals off, but we could not stop ICE from being there. So it looked like ICE is actually, we're helping them, even though our only job is to enforce the property owner's private property rights.
So how does that work that all makes sense. We all own our house. If it's a private property that is rented to someone else and the tenant is the subject of the ICE investigation, who's considered the property owner there? Like, is that tenant, if that tenant is ICE is there and they want us, we're all protesting, and they want us all gone, I don't foresee that being a situation, but I can see, that's fine. If it's a tenant, if it's a landlord who says, I want all these protesters off while ICE does their thing, like, I don't know, how does that shake out?
It really depends on the lease agreement and where.
Dig into that, or are we gonna call them the pound sand? Like, how does that?
Sometimes we have to dig into it. A lot of times we have to dig into what is in the lease agreement with landlord tenant issues. Because if the lease is for a property that includes like lawn maintenance as part of the lease, and it's then all the lawn is, if that's part of the lease, is part of the tenant's rights to control, and the landlord that can't actually supersede a tenant rights. But if you have a multi-unit building where there's common space and there's a tenant on one of those multi-unit buildings, that's a subject. But the common space owner says, which is the landowner says, I don't want anyone here. Then we have to enforce the common land enforcement, even though the individual tenant would have different opinions.
This came up just recently in Williston. I think it was May Day, but there was a big protest that formed at the green at Maple Tree Place, and they were going to march down to the ICE office on Harvest Lane, and you know, that was all taped off with police tape. You know, you could not step onto the property because ICE, they're not the only tenants in the building.
Yeah.
And you know, there was, you know, I think it was a well-organized protest. I don't think anything got out of hand, but that's the kind of situation I think you would come up against, where the building owner would say, my other tenants need to be able to come and go here.
Correct.
And
boot your shit tenant. Sorry.
Well,
Anyway,
no,
I'm
not picking sides in it, but it's a real issue.
Yeah, it is. That, I mean, it's
there.
That's one of those nuances of
very
the
complex.
the property right owners and enforcement of Vermont law of those rights would be a place we'd have to deploy our officers.
Yeah.
Where might put them in the situation where they might be in between ICE and protesters. As uncomfortable as that is.
Aaron online. Sorry, Aaron, I might have missed you for a while.
That's okay. I've been listening intently. So a question that I have for you, Matt, after listening to this. So I'm going to use like our farm as an example. Like say someone, kind of like the South Burlington situation, say someone went into like our barn to get away from ICE officers, and we were in a position of like, we are totally fine with a protest and people exercising their right to do so, but we don't want them like making a circle around the barn or getting near the animals or like any of the property stuff. How does that work? And this is a two-part question, I guess. Like if it's all on the same property, are you able to put up boundaries within like private property of like, you can be over here, but not over here? And then my other question is, I did ask our insurance guy, because we had an insurance, like our yearly renewal was a couple weeks ago. And I asked him about how that would work if something like South Burlington happened. And he said that there's no insurance coverage for that, that like a protest that would be civil unrest and there would be no coverage for that, which was the first time I ever really gave that any thought of like, what if it was around my house or around my business that we put all of this blood, sweat, and literal tears into? Like, made me think about the protesting a little differently. So that's why I'm asking about, like, could we say this is a boundary on our private property?
So the answer to your first question is yes. You can set up whatever boundary and rules you want on your property. So if you are, say, you want to give them the first 20 feet of your yard from the edge of the roadway and say, hey, stay within 20 feet of the road and you can be out there as much as you want, that's fine. And then that's a good conversation for us and them and the people there to say, hey, here's a boundary. Maybe we even set up, temporary with ropes or, police tape. Here's the boundary line that the property owner does not want you to come encroach any further than, or here's a space that they're willing to let you use because it's your property, you control it. At the same time, you can also say, I don't want anyone on the property. You don't want us there. You don't want, that's all within the grounds that you have. And then it even on public land, especially if there's multiple protests, there's federal laws that in court case law that says we can actually set up areas, protest areas, safe protest areas that people should stay within. So especially if we have two contentious protests at the same space, we can designate two different areas for the two different groups and say, hey, group A is over here, group B is over here. And that's found to be legal, and saying don't, intermingle and fight each other, more or less. It's a way to allow everyone a chance to get that the right to protest.
Couple of questions. First of all, I just want to, for the record, put out, and I think this is public, I was just double checking it, but in the South Burling incident, it was a resident of the house that ran back into the house, not someone else. So just to kind of clarify, as the example, that it was actually someone that lived there or was friends with people that lived there or staying there. The questions I have is, do you have anything in here around documentation requirements? So like when you're standing on the side and not standing between, like when you're doing what you need to be doing according to what we're stating here, is there a requirement to have body cam footage on? Is there a requirement to do anything else that in terms of documentation?
So our body cam footage, body cam policy would be in effect, which does require our body cams to be active on an event like this. The other one is, I think it's actually in the FIP policy, where it does say if anyone asks for our name and information, we would provide it to them. I'm just trying to make sure it's in the FIP policy itself versus my own different policy.
Yeah, that's okay.
But I do remember the policy. I just don't remember which one. That we provide our information upon request, and it's one of our general orders and policies that we have in.
And then my following question to that is, do you, can you, or will you verify that the ICE officers that are there are actually ICE officers? Or federal agents, I should say.
So this is the caveat I think we would, it's a tough one because we're not allowed to give legal advice or legal aid during an incident like this, and would verifying the identity of a federal agent be caveat to legal advice?
I would think not in this case. I
would think not in general, but I'm thinking out loud here too of like,
yeah,
that's one of those, if someone calls us if someone calls us and says there's an ICE related activity at my house, please come, that's probably something we're not going to be coming to because that's a federal related issue unless there's other circumstances that would require us to be there.
Okay. So I guess to the point of like checking it in, if you are at a protest and people are saying these are not federal agents, these are just people that are here, I don't think that at that point it's legal standing. It's really more of like validating that the folks that are there who are claiming an agent identity are, and that's just like looking at badges or whatever, to verify that. I think that that's more of like a public safety thing in that like people have been impersonating.
Right.
And I would think on that, the case that I'm thinking through that I just explained, that would be an appropriate.
Right. And we have ways to deconflict if there's multiple jurisdictions working in the same area, to deconflict investigations that might not be actually responding to it might be something we do via phone, through a dispatch.
Yeah.
To deconflict that is an actual operation.
Yeah. And that's a verification.
That was my question. What if somebody calls you and said there's a car full of scary guys with firearms and they just pulled into my driveway and they're banging on my door?
Then we respond to the incident of potential individuals with firearms at a door. Like, yeah. What the information do we have?
And so presumably you show up and you go, who are you?
Yes.
Yeah.
But if the report is, hey, I have ICE agents here with a detainer, can I open the door for them? That's legal advice and we can't engage in that.
Right. Yeah, I think the framing of the question, I'm sure,
It would- it would-
words
it could-
mean everything. And I think if I were to be there, I might ask you, have we verified that these are actually ICE officers?
Right.
And so how does that, I mean, that verification could look like many things, right? It could look like checking in badge and an ID, because you always check both, not one. Or it could be calling. I mean, I'm sure you would have the ability to call and say, hey, is there an active action going on in Richmond right now? Oh, there is. Okay, guys, there is an active action in Richmond. So like,
Correct.
likely ICE agents, like we're going to follow our policy.
And same with I think one of the concerns someone had spoken to me in the past was if someone shows up and they weren't sure, but they already did their action, they have someone in custody and they're moving away. How does I follow up to make sure that was a legitimate issue? And that'd be one again that we would look into, because as now after the fact that we're not actually responding to the scene, but we make the phone calls to verify it was the right individuals, that they are acting within the color of their authority in that moment, as far as we know.
Yeah, I'm mainly concerned about the reports I've heard around women being taken advantage of in terms of impersonating ICE agents, and then if others aren't doing anything because they're ICE agents coming in, then they're at risk by someone completely not in jurisdiction.
Right. And then the tactics that the federal agents have been using leads to others to be able to use those tactics that are not authorized to. So I understand that concern.
All of it's terrifying.
And I wish they would have other tactics, honestly, but I can't control that.
Right. Yeah, we can control what we do.
We do need to advocate at the federal level to have those guys show up in uniform. If you're gonna act under color of law, then you should wear the badges of your authority. The ICE and CBP, I've worked with them before. They all have uniforms.
And they have the ability to identify themselves. It's just a matter of will they.
Yeah.
I think I want to keep on topic because I know this is going to keep going. Mutual aid request for our department. Well, I'm going to allow officers to respond to traffic control or to staff road closure locations if that's being requested of us. I'm also going to let them assist in backfilling other calls for service. So if an agency is tied up with an incident, and let's make the example Williston in the May 1st issue that say all their officers were tied up and a retail theft comes in at Walmart. We'll go help with the retail theft at Walmart. That has nothing to do with the protest, but we can alleviate that call for service if it's needed. Just like if we are tied up with a bunch of calls, they would come in and service our community members the same way.
Yeah.
So, what I will not deploy officers to is going into mutual aid for crowd control. We're at a protest or ICE related incident. We're not going in to be crowd control. So if they ask for extra officers for crowd control, the answer is no. There's
only 3 of you, right? I mean,
yeah, but sometimes every person is requested.
Response can be, we can cover your other stuff and we can do traffic control.
Correct.
Free people up, but we're not going to get in there for crowd.
Correct.
We're not going to clean up your mess.
And so, sorry. Continue, Matt.
I don't know if you have any question on this one before I move on. I think I
was just going to say, this is pretty, how you have this written, it says you will decline requests for mutual aid for crowd control at an ICE enforcement related protest. I mean, we should probably have a conversation over the next number of months about whether we broaden that to crowd control outside of Richmond at all. Just, ICE is the current.
I don't know if I would, because there's a lot of situations that would maybe ask for crowd control, say the fair.
Fair. Good point.
Where they ask for other officers to work the fair as a private duty for us.
As David said, fair point.
Fair point. But that might include crowd control.
Maybe protest or something, or
Yeah, and that's again, I don't
see a situation where there's any number of federal agencies that could put us in a similar situation instead of having to rehash our policy because we included ICE in it specifically. But anyway.
But yeah, that's why I kind of narrowed it down to ICE, because there's a lot of other situations where crowd control would be necessary for us to possibly respond to. Even a school related critical incident where we have parents showing up to try to get kids is crowd control.
Yes.
That
you have thought this through much better than I have. So thank you.
Yeah, that's why I'm here. The last big one, this was an addition that I didn't have on the original put it out, after speaking with Patty, we want to make sure we put in that our officers will adhere to our statewide use of force policy, which also includes the duty to intervene if they see another officer, if they witness another officer using excessive force. So as part of the statewide use of force policy, all officers have to abide by it. But we want to make sure it's clear that you are going to make sure you abide by the policies that are in place.
In terms of scope, that clearly applies to Vermont officers. What about ICE or federal officers?
The policy does not differentiate between officers. It just says when you observe excessive force being used.
Really?
Yes.
Yeah.
Now, how that's going to play out in law, in the court, I don't know, but we hopefully save someone from getting hurt or injured if in the case, and we will fight that fight later in the courtroom.
I hope you know that if you were to adhere to the state policy and do what you thought was right in the moment and it turned into a battle, as a select board, I can only speak for myself, but I would stand behind you 100%.
Oh, absolutely.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I wouldn't encourage you to go out searching for that fight. But I think that if that happens and it protects someone in Richmond, and like you said, it turns into a court battle, but someone is ultimately physically safer because of that, that's a battle we should be willing to.
Yeah, same.
Yep.
Agreed.
I have just a couple more questions on the documentation side of things. So are we, I just looked at the FIP. It doesn't look like there's a ton in the FIP for documentation wise. How long do we hold our body cam footage for in Richmond?
Current Axon policy is 18 months unless it's a flagged incident to be held for longer.
Can we flag any ICE interaction incidents or ICE presence as longer?
Okay, how long would you think you would want it?
I don't know.
Because you got to remember, all this data and data storage cost us money too.
Oh, yeah.
So sorry, what was our standard?
18 months.
18 months. That seems like long enough to establish whether there is
a case
to at least flag it for further.
Yeah, within that 18 months, we can decide to archive.
And if we need to archive it for longer time periods, then we can save it for longer time periods.
But
Galen, there should be an additional. I mean, if there were to be any ICE incident on our body cam footage, we should automatically review that for further archival.
That's the next side of things is there a supervisor notification? Like, are people if there's any ICE presence in town with any of your other officers, will they immediately alert you via notification?
There isn't a direct policy on that right now. But any major incident, they should be notifying me. That's kind of what I've expressed to them. Doesn't matter what the major incident is, so you should be telling me.
I think this is my personal opinion, I would advocate that any ICE interaction from just like what we've seen on Front Porch Forum and so forth is escalated to you, just as even from an awareness point, so that if other people are asking you about it, that you have the firsthand information immediately. And can do as you please with that information. It might be nothing, like a passing by somewhere, and it might be something that you weren't aware of at all, and by not being aware of and having a conversation with someone could cause distress that's unnecessary, where if you had that escalation come forth, which you did, when it happened, then you're able to have the conversation immediately and have the firsthand information. So I would just say, from my perspective, I would want any interaction with ICE, regardless of what it is, to have you alerted, even if that's just a minor alert.
Okay.
That's my opinion. And then I think lastly, in terms of documentation afterwards, I assume we just follow our regular documentation patterns, and we have a written report and
correct. Every incident that we go to, but that's sort of a publicly generated incident, has an incident number and a report that goes with it.
Makes sense.
Yeah, I greatly appreciate you taking the effort to put this down in writing. I think when we first talked about it, I might have been a little misinformed about your relationship to mutual aid, and this really allays any fears I might have had. I know you need to preserve the right of the ability of the Richmond PD to depend on other neighboring forces to come to your aid at some point in the future, and we certainly don't want to interpose you or the other officers on your staff between an angry public and an out of control federal agency. It's just not fair to do that. Everything I've seen here, though, I think reinforces what we do want, which is to acknowledge the limits of them, to compel you to act on their behalf. And to the extent that you do go to the aid of neighboring communities, you do it to do the kinds of things we would want you to do here. So I thank you a lot. I mean, this on top of the other effort you put into this issue earlier on, it's one of those things that makes me feel good about you being our chief. So I really thank you for doing it.
Bonnie, did I see your hand up?
Oh, you did. Yes.
Say so.
Thank you so much. There's great appreciation for the open dialogue that's happened around this. There's a shorthand that we're all using, which is saying ICE. And it's ICE and Border Patrol, right? So they are two separate agencies, but are we just talking about federal agents in general, or am I incorrect in?
We can't say general, all federal agents, because that would include other services that we would use routinely, like DEA, FBI, ATF, all of our three-letter acronym friends, because they have a lot more resources and nearby resources for larger investigations that we would use routinely. People don't know there's an ATF building in Burlington that has the ability to do forensics on most ballistics, and within a few minutes I can bring a shell casing down, they can run it and do forensics on it without ever leaving my site, and change the custody of it and then give it back to us.
That's cool.
So there's a lot of our partners, the federal partners, that help us in our job.
Sure. And I didn't need to catch
So
dispersion.
that's why I think the term of immigration enforcement,
Just using that as the catch-all for both ICE
and Border Patrol, because it would cover all enforcement actions that the federal government will take.
Sounds great.
Nice.
Awesome. I like that. Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much for putting this together. I really appreciate all the work you put into this. And again, like we've talked for the last 10 year or so, just generally about being an example in the state. And I think that the work that you've done in working with the community and with us and having these tough conversations and putting some pen to paper on, what we will do and aligning on that before anything were to happen really sets us as the standard for small town Vermont, and probably even above and beyond that. And maybe even at odds with some of the cities around us as well. So I'm very proud of our police force and what you've done here. So thank you for everything. Sorry, Patty.
I just want to say that I have something I'd like to present after the chief. And we've been in pretty close communication, but so I didn't want to end this discussion.
Yes, I was going to say, Patty and I have been working, I don't know how many meetings, a lot of meetings and communication back and forth in regards to this document feedback and what the document she has created. So I'd like Patty to give the floor over to Patty for next.
Wonderful.
We have time.
Yeah.
Thanks. It's good.
Sorry.
Hey, I sent you all a document, and then Bonnie cleaned it up. So it's a little there's no content change, it's just a little.
Everybody needs that.
It's cleaned up. So I want to thank you.
Welcome.
For all of this work and time that you've spent with me and the community on a very weird thing that we're encountering right now. We are talking about how are we going to respond to the federal government being lawless and potentially hurting citizens. This is a very unusual conversation that we're having right here. you know, and we had that conversation about a year ago at the police forum, where you told us, here are your rights, here's ways of protecting yourself from ICE. So it's a sad time we're living in right now.
Scary.
And
Scary.
scary. So I use different words than that in terms of what I would call what happened on Dorset Street. What happened on Dorset Street was not a protest. What happened on Dorset Street was community members and literal neighbors dashing out of their homes to try to protect their neighbors, you know, from these folks. And it wasn't like no kings. People didn't come with signs. People came to put their bodies in the way of harm, you know, in harm's way to try to protect their neighbors. And so what happened that day was, and this is how it will go down in Richmond as well, is that people were alerted, community members were alerted, and people responded very quickly and assembled at that home to protect their neighbors. They knew they were at risk, and I think they knew what the escalated risk was. So it's very different. You don't go to a protest thinking you might get shot, right? And so while the warrant, they didn't have a warrant, and while the warrant had to be gotten, a judicial warrant, people assembled. And it was very, very peaceful. South Burlington Police Department, we've talked about the South Burlington Police Department's response, and we've talked, and it sounds like we would have a similar response, is that they have a community policing kind of model, and they would be chatting, and as Matt said, walk through the crowd and find out who are the leaders and, make people realize that they're here, in a positive way. And so, and then when or if ICE got a federal warrant, which they did late in the day, and the person wasn't there, as we all know, and people were taken who had no warrant and so forth. When that happened, our police officers would back off and be on the edges, as would people who came to this protection movement. Would probably, some of those people, like a person like me, I would back off at that point. If there's a judicial warrant, I know what's going to happen next. They're going to go into that house. So, and some people might choose not to. And they will have to deal with the consequences, and people know what those consequences are, and they're trying to protect their neighbors. So it's a weird place we're in right now. And we have seen other countries and other historical times when this has happened, when the government is doing stuff like this. So my document is a little bit different from Matt's in that I'm a teacher. And so I come from that perspective of we need to train our officers to do the right thing. And how will they act if another situation arises like March 11th? And so this document gives officers, practical, I guess I've written it right in the fact, training to include real life situations such as that took place on 3/11. So there are things in here that are not in Matt's, because Matt's are general guidelines that hopefully will guide them with whatever situation comes up, because we don't know what situation is going to come. So these are guidelines. This is more along what should our officers be told they should do in some of the things that happened on the 11th. So the two of us have chatted about this, and we're feeling as though this document goes with this document. That these are the general overarching guidelines. And this is the training for right now. And this is, both are living documents. And as we see more of these actions, and we're going to see more of these actions happen, we're going to learn what our police officers like, oh, these guys did this. If we are in this situation, we're going to do that. As Matt just said, we're not going to clear the way for ICE. We're going to back off. So I guess what I would just like to say, I think all of these things are pretty straightforward. One thing I would mention in the first section where it says, what does this mean? The FIP does not prohibit the police department, blah, blah, blah. And 2 bullets down, when it talks about public safety, one of them is to make sure our officers know that they are acting as credible witnesses. A police officer is a credible witness. And that they will probably be asked to speak in court, in the future about what happened. And so they just need to understand that is the case. And then there are several other things. Most of these are related to what happened on March 11th and those things could happen again and what our officers should do. At the very end, I say these practices already mandated by the FIP must be affirmed by the Richmond Selectboard, and all Richmond police officers must be trained to them. And so Matt and I have talked, and he said that he would do this training and that he would
document. Yes.
And he would document the training.
My game plan would be, now I present this to you guys, and I've finished up the feedback loop at this point, would be providing this document to all officers, including, and had Patty's additional document with there, reviewing both documents, and going over and discussing any questions my officers may have. Once that's done, we actually do a training slip, so we document that we did a training on this, so it'll be in our records that we did train on these documents. So if there's a question that comes up in the future, we can point back to, yes, we did cover these issues during the training.
Nice. I know there's different types of training, and in reviewing the document, it's great. And is there as part of that, like some, what would you do if, like, those kind of, like, what does that kind of look like?
Some of those questions would be, yeah. So, it would be going through our document and then going through these scenarios, especially, looking at March 11th as a prime example and saying, March 11th, this happened. Now that we've covered this document, what should we do here based on the guidelines?
Yeah.
And then say, if there's any deviation from the guidelines, redirect our officers, say, hey, this is what I expect you to do. And then once we have those discussions, the other piece, which I don't know if I will have time to get to it right away before doing the training, would be trying to find some of their clips from body cameras and play 2 minutes of the clip and say, this just happened. What do you do?
Yeah.
It's a good one.
I like that.
Those are good feedback loops. And then take that clip and put it in our training logs and say, this is the clip we watched and this is the feedback.
Yeah.
We do that a lot in use of force related issues when we do our use of force updates every year. Is we watch recent use of force scenarios that have come out and say, this just happened. What do you do? And break down the videos and say, would you do something different?
Nice. That's great. Thank you. That answers my question.
Yeah, I would just like to add one other thing. I don't know if you guys are aware of it, but one of the things that Richmond Racial Equity was charged with many years ago was to try to figure out what kinds of data we wanted the police department to post so that the community could, in essence, do oversight, right? What are they up to, and what are our police for, and any question you might want to ask. Chief Cohen has only been here, what, a year?
I'm coming up on 2.
Okay. Seems like you're still new.
I know, still new, still learning things.
Anyways, if you go to our website, if you go to the police website, you'll see these things that he's talking about. Race data from traffic stops, trainings, as well as incident reports that you can kind of collate back and forth. So we're in a place we haven't really been before. Hearing about that we're going to document this training, and we're going to all be able to see that when that happens. We're not going to have to ask Matt. So have you done the use of force training? Have you done this? It'll be there for us to all look at as our new officers are coming out as well.
Mm-hmm.
So we're both in agreement with these documents.
Excellent.
Correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
Bonnie?
One question, and maybe not an easy one to answer. Are officers trained in how to intervene with a fellow officer if they are seeing them do something that is not okay?
So,
Like, how does that look? Because that's probably very, very.
as far as individual officer training, I don't know what they're doing most recently down at the academy since the duty to intervene law has come into play. We do review it on our use because every year we have to do a use of force review. And so we do our use of force policy. There's 4 hours of hands-on training after that. And in that, we cover the duty to intervene. Now, the caveat, sometimes it's you just have to act and pull an officer off if they're going beyond what is normal scope of what is reasonable. The other piece of it is like what happens if you see something that is not like threatening, but you need to address the behavior. And a lot of times those conversations happen outside of the public eye. And that's just, professionalism of having that feedback loop done and say, hey, this conversation or how your tone in this moment was not the best tone. Maybe we should rethink that. That is feedback for everybody. And I encourage it to come, even if they see me doing the same, hold me to the same standard because, we all can learn, we all make mistakes. I'm not immune to that. So.
It looks like there also, and I just saw this tonight when I went to the Criminal Justice Council website, that there's a new code of conduct.
There is a new code of conduct and a new training that I haven't had the time
People are
to
going to be held to, and I think that it's, I think it looks really interesting to me. I don't know how it's going to.
It looks interesting. It actually almost looks a little dangerous, honestly.
Yeah.
For some of the codes where it's conduct off duty and including like profanity use off duty can get people in trouble.
But it was sorely 2 minutes.
So it's like, because they'll call it conduct unbecoming.
Yeah, that's tough.
And where it's sometimes I think it goes beyond the scope of the job, which is, if you're on duty, yes, you need to be 100% professional with people, but you're sometimes off duty life. If you, let a swear word out because you stubbed your toe, you shouldn't lose your job.
Well, thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you all for bringing this up and taking this all very seriously.
Thank you for taking the time to put it all together. I
Yeah,
appreciate
this
the
was great.
partnership and
Thank you. Yeah, Matt, I think it goes without saying, sorry, Chief Cohen, every time you come and talk to us and you've worked with community members, you've done all this, I'm continually impressed and you continually exceed my personal expectations of how much effort and thought and nuance is put into this, and I appreciate it. So hopefully you keep up the great work and
keep going.
Some piece of feedback, and you probably know what it is. First, okay.
It's actually at home because I went home first before coming back, and my son was having a rough day and did not want me to bring Duke into work.
Okay, I'll let it happen.
I said, you know what, buddy, I'll let him stay home with you.
Okay, I had Sunday.
Fair enough. It's an endorsement, I guess.
Yeah.
Sure, I'll let it fly this time. Thank you.
Next we have our most exciting topic. Consideration of setting a date for a special meeting to discuss the options for Thompson Road, Huntington Road, Bridge Street, and Cochran Road intersection. This conversation is only to discuss setting the hearing date and a brief update from Josh from CCRPC about the legal requirement to have a four-way stop versus the legal option to have a four-way stop. So you want to summarize that, Josh, or did all the board members have a chance to review this?
Yes.
I did, thought it was informative. Does sound like the way it's worded is interesting in that it does sound like there might be a legal requirement based on an engineering study, was how I interpreted that. I don't know how to, not going to run with it or anything, but it did the way is this posted, Josh? This response? Can we post that just as at the next meeting? Sure. Special meeting or whatever. There was a specific sentence or two in here that I wanted to read, but discretion is
The engineer's discretion.
Yeah. It's important to note that even if an always stop warrant is met, it still does not require the installation of an always stop. Discretion is always given to the engineer or the engineering study. And I guess that means that the discretion, they can always decide to have one or not have one. But since the warrant seems like it could require it, but the engineer overrides, does that mean the engineer can require it legally? There seems to be some, anyway. I think we're going to come to a more community oriented solution anyway, but it does seem like if we commission a study there, I can see how there might be an avenue where we are then legally obligated to implement some measures. I don't know.
Well, didn't we have a study?
It's a different study.
We've had a set of studies, but I think what this refers to is a study about beyond the options you have. When I spoke with this guy, he said, well, at that time, I kind of thought the town was going to take one of the options that we put forth. And now the town has not taken those options. So the push coming to shove moment didn't actually happen. The language here is pretty clear that you look at it, you say, based on the facts, there are things such as traffic engineers. There is some science and protocol. It's like, why have engineers design your parts of your large building is because that's the right way to do it, right? That it's safe and sound. So it's predicated on the idea that the traffic engineer looks at facts like the physical layout of the intersection, the volume of traffic. It was 5 cars a day through the intersection. You wouldn't do anything. But the last data,
he would still bill us.
Yeah, for that opinion, of course. So I think we get into this. What I would sort of suggest, we might even ask one of the CCRPC staff to attend and have some dialogue about what should we do, what are our options, and to what degree is doing nothing an option, or some of the supplemental or secondary things that people talked about. Are those adequate to address the conditions there? And that's where the engineer could come up with options like they did in the past. You could come up with a traffic circle. You could do stop signs. You could do islands. And where does it come to shove? Like is doing nothing also an option? I don't think we've really hit that.
I mean, even if we were to do nothing, I mean, we have the option to never vote in or pass an ordinance to do anything. But what are the ramifications of that? I mean, maybe the ramifications are we have an intersection that we are unsatisfied with, or is there legal ramifications, or is it just an exposure to the town? I would be curious to see. I have no idea what that looks like.
That would be a legal question, not an engineer question.
Exactly.
Right. And I think from what I've seen that it's an exposure. And so it puts us at a risk, but we'll have to get more details on that. There's a lot here, and there's just the words that came back are like very correct. And there's things in between the words that if you understand what is
Yes,
in
exactly.
the
Yeah.
document versus not, like, from what I've found, even if we don't have to do a four-way stop, nothing's legally pushing us to do a four-way stop. However, that intersection as it exists today with the two stop signs on the non-primary roads is not an option for that kind of intersection generally. So even if it's not like a four-way stop, it doesn't mean that we can still do nothing. And that's where like it gets real nuanced, and there's a lot underneath it that legally I would be very nervous if someone brought us to court on this.
Well, I guess
Especially
I would
because
be
all
curious to see what our, I mean, if it's existed, I can see a situation where our lawyer says, well, it's existed like this forever. So if you do nothing,
No.
you're kind of covered.
No,
They say,
because
once you talked about it, you knew it was a problem.
So
You do something. I mean, I don't think that they will say, you're good to go, even though you thought it was a problem and you did nothing, you're good.
There's
It's never.
So there is evidence for that in a variety of ways, that if you are unaware of a risk to your employee, to the public, to whomever, you're not obligated to do something, or there's lower level of risk. But if you're aware of it and still do nothing, then there is higher potential risk. It's how sort of liability and lawsuits work. And then the attorneys get to fight about it.
the other piece of that is there was actually something in the writing for the new guidelines that I believe it was in 2021. It went into effect for Vermont from the federal perspective. They pushed down new guidelines, and then Vermont said, yep, we're good with these in that same year. I'll have to double check the time frame around that. Anyways, the implication there is if you change anything about the intersection that's been grandfathered in, so let's say we had our two stop signs, great. We didn't touch anything. We didn't do any paving. We didn't do any kind of updates to it whatsoever. Then it's still grandfathered in, but as soon as you make a change, which could be, interpreted in different ways, then it's no longer grandfathered in, and you need to put it under one of the acceptable approaches. Yeah. So that's actually written into some of it too. So it's actually called out really specifically of like that, even if we didn't know, now we know, and it's documented that we know. And, there is a trigger point of when that section is no longer grandfathered in.
Which is actually similar to how the ADA works. If your building is not compliant, you're not doing anything, it's like, oh, you sort of like just get to sit there. But as soon as you go through substantial renovations and then there's some judgment about what that means, now you have to make it accessible.
And so that's also an important part in the next conversation for when we're scheduling this, is that if we decide that nothing that we have done is a change point that's been significant enough that we believe that that is aligned with something that would trigger on not being grandfathered in, doing something like putting in the some of the supplemental things that we've talked about would be. And so all of a sudden that creates a higher pressure there. So there's a lot of pieces.
Hash this out at the special meeting.
Yes.
That we are now going to schedule. Josh tossed out some options. They're all off Mondays, so it'd be a Monday that is not a regular select board meeting. We have May 11th, June 8th, or June 29th. June 29th, Josh won't be able to attend that.
May 11th?
May 11th would be this following Monday.
Right. What was the middle one?
June 8th.
Okay.
That was the same night that we did the annual meeting for water sewer.
Right, yeah.
But if you guys want to do that, I mean, June 8th probably.
Oh, I'm gonna have to.
Mid space, but we could start water sewer at 5 or 5:30, be wrapped up, and then roll over this pretty easily.
My only thought
the reason we don't have May 25th on there is May 25th is an off Monday. It is also Memorial Day.
It's Memorial Day.
We don't want to do that.
And then I think there was another date on, like there's a June 22nd, but there's Andrews Community Forest and Parking Advisory Committee. So we'd have to like reshuffle them around a little bit. If you really wanted June 22nd, you could probably have it, but we just have to like shuffle a couple other committees.
My one comment is if we want to try to get like a CCRPC staff person to participate even virtually, the 11th may be soon.
Too quick.
Yeah, I would think. And people are gonna gripe if they feel like we slid this meeting in here.
Yeah, I agree.
That's it.
You know, I think we want this well publicized and we want it well attended, I'm afraid.
June 8th looks fine.
The 8th or the 22nd, even if the 22nd requires some shuffling.
Yeah, I think parking advisory probably won't meet. They haven't met for a while
I'm okay with June 8th.
tonight, but
I just love these long nights. The 8th would be okay.
Well, I like stacking those meetings up every Monday too.
Yeah,
But
especially in the summer when it's nice.
this is what we signed up for, I guess.
It
So,
is. We did this to ourselves. So.
yeah, I would vote for June 8th.
Anyone have a reason they would not like to do June 8th? Let me check. I got some work travel coming up. Let me make sure that that's gonna fly for me.
In an electric vehicle or?
In an airplane. Not an electric one.
One observation I would have is when you get to June 22nd, that is when school is no longer in session. So you might find that public attendance, people are on their school vacations.
good point.
Maybe we do shoot for June 8th then. June 8th works well for me.
Yeah, that was for me.
Someone like to make a motion to warn the meeting for June 8th?
I move to hold a special meeting to discuss the Thompson Road, Huntington Road, Bridge Street, and Cochran Road intersection on June 8th at 7 p.m.
This is David, I'll second.
All those in favor?
Bart, aye.
Caitlin, I.
Greg, aye.
David, aye.
Adam, aye. Great. Next item is a revisit of the Greensea's use of 4 parking spaces of the town owned lot at 27 Bridge Street. We had originally approved this for when did we approve this?
I think it was going to start next week.
Start the
They didn't start May 11th, but
11th
they wanted
for
to
2
move it.
weeks.
Yeah, they wanted to move it up a week to start their scaffolding this week, then have like I think it's a 2-week break, and then come up and do the work. And there's authority for town manager or road foreman to approve this in the ordinance. So I provided an update at the last meeting, just wanted to provide another update that their dates slightly changed.
It sounds like they'll give or take, still use the spots for 2 weeks. It'll just be 2
They're spaced out.
non-contiguous weeks.
Yeah.
So it makes sense. They'll have some scaffolding staged there while they set it up. Then they'll take a break and they'll come back and do the work and have dumpsters.
Yep, but it still doesn't go beyond the June 12th, so.
Great. Thanks for the update, Josh.
Yep.
Next, we have consideration of adopting the updated town road and bridge standards. Well, what are the changes to the standards?
Yeah, so it's mostly around culverts.
Sizing on that?
Yeah, making sure that you have the authority to upsize a culvert if it gets washed out or overtopped. A lot of stuff that Pete's kind of already doing, but I think really what this does is aligns it better. So when FEMA comes in and says, well, why'd you go from an 18 to 24 inch culvert? Well, because the standards they were supposed to. And that helps us get easier funding from FEMA justification. So Pete's reviewed them all. He's no problems with them. Says, a lot of stuff he's already working on doing anyway. So
I think we had talked about this before they had been updated thoroughly and reviewed by Pete many months ago. I think we brought this up.
maybe not these updates, but we probably talked about it
There was something about upsizing the authority to.
Yeah, and I think there had been authority, but this really clarifies it.
Right.
So
That seems to be useful. Pete's been using that over the last number of towns
absolutely.
Unfortunately.
I'll only observe, it's my understanding that these road and bridge standards are related to design and construction of the roads and bridges, not inclusive of stop signs.
That is a good point. We're not sneaking anything in anyone. I mean, we might sneak a larger culvert in on someone's driveway if it's going to stop from washing out, but
stop sign, would that stop the flooding?
Oh, if only it would.
Got the flood just stop there,
Stop signs.
we can't go past that
You
sign.
might need 4
what if we
at
put
that
them in
point.
bulletins?
You have to get the right guy to hold.
Oh, man.
Getting late.
Anyway, would someone like to make a motion to adopt standards?
I move to adopt the town road and bridge standards that were updated on January 21st, 2026.
This Barta, I will second that.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Bart, aye.
Caitlin, I.
Greg, aye.
David, I.
Adam, I. Thanks for the work, Josh and Pete.
Yep.
Next we have consideration of approving a 4x8 project sign for the Tilden Ave, Bridge Street and Cochran Road waterline replacement project to be displayed at the town center for 4 months this spring and summer during the time frame of the project. Signs required to be displayed by the project. And it'll be information about the cost, contact info, and then some mandatory EPA language and other project info.
Can our pictures be on it?
No, but the new water and sewer logo will be on it.
Nice. It's just the same thing, but in a water and sewer logo.
No comment.
No, this makes sense.
Do we have a price for this sign or?
It's all part of the project.
Oh, okay.
It's part of the $1.4 million project we have to sell.
Is it?
I moved.
I heard a rumor that it was $1 to do the water line replacement and 1.3999 million was for the sign. Is that true?
Very expensive signs.
Price of plywood's just.
Do we have to put anybody's specific name on it? Like, just given our current
Town manager Josh Ireson.
I'm not sure exactly whose name and what, I mean, there is some contact information, I think, that goes on it, but really I'm letting the engineer and the state handle exactly what information.
It's just a first script one.
It's,
thing.
yeah, it's one of those, when you go by a construction site, like, here's the information about that project. And if you have a complaint or a concern, here's a number to call.
Got it.
And this is only one part of the sort of communications strategy and effort.
Yeah, we'll be doing probably a lot of like weekly traffic updates over the summer, that type of thing.
Good.
Mr. Chair, this is David. I move to approve displaying a 4-foot by 8-foot project sign for the Tilden Avenue, Bridge Street and Cochran Road water line replacement project to be displayed at the town center for 4 months this spring and summer during the time frame of the project.
This is Bart, I'll second it.
So question, do we need a zoning permit for this?
No, town is exempt from signage.
Do we have a picture? Is this how cute is this sign?
It's not gonna be cute.
It's not.
It won't be.
It's gonna be, as Emmett would say, wicked uncute. It's gonna be like a bright orange job site sign.
Does it have to be?
I would imagine it's like a prescribed.
It's part of the rules of probably with the federal funding that we're getting for the project, that type of stuff.
I'm sure there are standards.
This is what we call the praise and honors for the non-participants. There'll be a name on there you've never seen before.
Oh, man.
Milton Keensworthy, undersecretary.
We have a motion on the table. All those in favor?
Bart, aye.
And I.
Great guy.
David, I.
Adam, nay. Beat you to it.
Oh, I should have. It's on. I can't.
If you did it, I wasn't gonna do it.
Holding out
You
for
have-
a
I
cute
actually
sign.
think we gotta put the sign up. We should definitely do the water line replacement, but
Mr. Chair, this is David. I move to approve the minutes from the April 27th, 2026 meeting.
This is Greg. I will second that motion.
no adjustments. All those in favor?
Bart, aye.
Caitlin, I.
Greg, aye.
David, I.
Adam, I. Then we have 2 POs or 1 PO, Josh?
It's just the one PO, but then a motion for use of
Yeah.
that center funds. So this is the one,
So we,
yeah.
this is, what is it? Purchase order 5316 to Mount Mansfield Unified Union School District for the payment of school taxes for quarter 3 and 4 in the amount of $4,404,383.61.
Mr. Chair, this is David. I move to approve purchase order number 5316 to the Mount Mansfield Unified Union School District for payment of school taxes for quarters 3 and 4 in the amount of $4,404,383 and the all-important 61 cents.
This is Bart, I'll second that.
All those in favor? Bart,
I have one question. Does this earn interest while we're sitting on it?
It does, and usually we pay every quarter. And I asked Connie, why didn't we pay quarter 3? It just got caught up in things. And she looked at quarter 4, she went, oh, shoot, we didn't pay quarter 3, and the school never reached out to ask for their money, which is surprising given the current environment. So we earned a little bit of extra interest for the last months.
you got like,
Peripheral, but I thought.
No, it's a good question.
They didn't notice we didn't pay it.
Right, I know.
Bart, aye.
Thanks for the thing.
Caitlin, I.
Budget environment.
Greg, aye.
David, I.
Adam, I.
But yeah,
Yes.
And that is a breathtaking amount of money, though.
Yeah.
It really, yeah. I mean,
Yeah, just to be clear, this is not money that the town of Richmond collected for town of Richmond purposes. This is a pass-through that the town of Richmond collected as taxes for the education fund. Good.
you got it. Thank you for clarifying that.
Next, we have the consideration of approval of the use of $687.50 from the Town Center Reserve Fund for the repairs of the elevator in the Richmond Free Library.
Didn't we just fix that damn
Well,
thing?
that's why I included more information. So this is all still kind of going back to the original problem. So, because when I got the invoice too, I said the same thing. I called up Suzanne and said, I thought we already paid for these fixes. So what happened was it broke down in October. They called somebody to come out, fix it. It broke down again in December. And at that point, when Alpha showed up, they looked at it. They noticed that there was some oil leaking. So they found essentially two problems. They found that there was a software issue that was causing the elevator to stop working, even if there was a brief power flicker.
Software for something that goes up and down.
It's very, there's a lot that goes into it. So they found that they could fix that software issue by installing some software on site. So that way, if there's even a power flicker, it'll reset itself and reboot itself. They dug into the oil issue and they found that there was an old gasket, like 20 years old, that had failed. And part of the reason why it failed, I guess, is there's part of the elevator shaft that has a window that, you know, in those like -degree nights, it gets cold. They said if it wasn't a 20-year-old gasket, it would have been fine. The cold doesn't usually bother it, but the cold combined with the aging gasket, it failed. So that's where the oil came out. So then we got the estimate, I think, for we got a bill for the initial response. We got a bill for the parts we had to pay early so we could get the parts. Then they came out, did the parts for the gasket, and now they came out and did the software install. So hopefully now we're done with the elevator. And now on to sewer issues that popped up over there today. So
How much code does it take to move an elevator up?
I would just point out that when I worked at Green Mountain, we bought Tully's Coffee in Seattle, Washington, and they had a fully analog controlled elevator. And it was 4160 volt, like 7-story analog controlled, and all the controls were 4160, and it was the scariest effing thing I've ever seen in my whole life. It was so scary. So this elevator is not that bad. It could be way worse.
yeah, and I hope that the software issue really solves it, because I know that they would frequently be like, oh, elevator's not working. I wonder why. And finally it got diagnosed. Yeah. I mean, and they had changed from Otis to Alpha within the last year. So Alpha seems like they're diagnosing things better and trying to be a little more preventative. So yeah, but I had the same response of like, gee,
Software to run an elevator.
We will.
I don't understand.
You spend more on paying the elevator technician than you would getting a good lawyer.
Yeah.
The hourly rate these guys charge is
very elevated.
This is Caitlin. I move to approve the use of $687.50 from the Town Center Reserve Fund for repairs to the elevator at the Richmond Free Library.
Is Bart, I'll second that.
All those in favor?
Bart, aye.
Caitlin, I.
Greg, aye.
David, I.
Adam, aye. Our last piece to talk about is items for the next.
Did you do the
agenda.
warrants?
Move to approve the warrants.
Oh, did we not do the
Second?
warrants?
I think I had too many other things in there for you. I don't think
Yeah,
I
I
don't
think
want
that's
to
right over them.
Yes.
I'll second them.
All those in favor?
Bart, aye.
Caitlin, I.
Greg, aye.
David, I.
Adam, aye. Now we can go on to items for the next agenda.
Woo.
What's that? I took notes.
Can you remind me, did the extra levy on the taxes for the town center building, did that go through? Did that pass?
Did.
Because I'm thinking
Create a reserve fund for that?
well, I think we should at least start developing some kind of policy about it, because there is money in the kitty now. And we have a pretty good list of what needs to be done. And I'm wondering if we want to find time, if not the next meeting, then sometime in the near future to discuss, how we want to go about that.
So we do have a list of sort of smaller jobs that we're trying to pick away at. We had a list of larger jobs from the study that was done in this building that led up to the bond vote. And then I think there was another list that came out that the second iteration of the Town Center Committee put together to look at the larger items. And I am delayed on finalizing the agreement, but we did want to move forward with another study of the building. That was a different architect that was going to do that. That was approved a while ago, and that's gone through a few different delays on back and forth with attorneys and language. But we'll have another list after that. I know I was just looking at a list with Duncan that was more like the larger pieces, but I think that this next study is going to look at those again. So we could do a preliminary look for sure, but then as we kick off this new study, there might be more information.
I don't want to get on a treadmill with this thing. I think, I mean, if the guy looks at this and says, okay, you can fill these with Marvin Magnum windows, we're gonna get a quote for $250,000, and we're not going to want to do it. Part of the logic behind breaking this up this way and taking it in small bites is that there's another way to do that, and we should the time to let's just set aside time to have this discussion.
Yeah. Do it during a regular meeting.
Yeah, I think this is a 20-minute item, but to just start broadly setting, taking it out of Josh's head and getting it on the table, broadly sort of understanding what the priorities are, and because I know the big pictures, the windows, the flood proofing, the mechanical systems, but beyond there, I mean, a lot of these rooms could use a coat of paint.
Yeah.
We could freshen up the ceiling tiles. There are little projects that, like I said, the whole idea of doing it that way was maybe over 10 years we can accomplish what we can't get a bond vote for.
Yeah.
Does.
Yeah.
That makes sense. Start tackling things.
Yeah, and we should just develop a policy or priorities, or it's just we come up with an approach.
Unrelated, do we want to follow up on the suggestion we heard from CSWD on supplemental insurance? I don't know.
That was that I had is about insurance, and then policies around fishing and wire transfers, etc.
There were two other things we've received emails in the last few weeks about Huntington Road speeds, which that road changes a couple of times, and there was downgraded to 40. Separate from Heinsberg Road, which has its own things. But if we want to at least briefly discuss that, and then there was a question of whether our speed bumps are built and installed to standard.
Also the welcome to Richmond signs, whether we should put roofs on the existing signs.
Yeah, there you go.
Signs in as well.
I think we have a committee that's been very active recently. The housing committee has been putting in a lot of work, and so we should probably dedicate some time. Can reach out and see when they would like that. I think they have a couple more meetings they want to get through before they come and talk with us. Cool. I think that they would like to.
We should develop our own policy on incremental financing tools. I mean, they have the impression that we're enthusiastic about them, and I don't think we really talked about them.
Yeah.
My only comment to people has been in terms of the CHIP funding, that there are absolutely people who are against it, but it's a way for a project, in a sense, to pay for itself versus somebody else paying for it. So if the question is, will the current water sewer customers pay for a water line extension or sewer line extension to serve new development? Current ordinances don't support that. And then you can have a conversation about then, if it's not the developer, who should pay? Is it the town as a whole? Is it the water sewer users or something else?
Yeah, it's tough because we always kind of, everyone agrees that everyone benefits, but everyone also agrees that they cannot saddle the burden of paying for it. So it's tricky.
So that's kind of the conundrum, right?
We don't want to subsidize, private developers' speculative activities though either,
Yeah, exactly.
And a thing I throw in routinely is the water sewer users are demonstrably lower income than the town as a whole. And it seems at least modestly troublesome to ask some of the poorest residents to
subsidize development for new residents when there's no pro forma to show it's gonna be.
We got an interesting thing we could bring up, actually. Came up at the Chittenden Regional Planning, I don't know, Leaders Forum or whatever. So a bunch of select board chairs and vice chairs and people, basically as many people as possible without being quorum. And a few of the boards indicated that their first meeting and they pick a date, but they meet and they kind of come up with a policy. You know, there's going to be day-to-day stuff that we do as a select board, and they pick a few policy things that they would like to dive into that year or that session.
Yeah.
We just talked about a lot of things that we could be a committee that only dealt with any one of these issues for an entire year.
Yeah.
We don't have the ability to do that. And would we like to have maybe make the first part of that as a discussion about which one of these things we might want to bite off, or maybe not which one, but how we would prioritize and how we would address those. I think just talking about them all in open sessions, satisfying, but might not be the best way to make headway on them. We come up with a policy strategy, we might be able to delegate some of that and pull in extra help from that bill to prioritize and just only accomplish a few, but get a few done.
Yeah.
That's something we would like to have a conversation about. Dave?
Yes.
Makes sense.
For that. Select board
Priority,
annual priority policies, goals.
something like that. Yeah. I think that'd be good because, yeah, there's often a lot of, yeah, let's do that. Yeah, let's do that. And pretty soon you're the frog in the water. It's boiled because you said yes to too many things.
Yeah.
Comfortable with that, or familiar with that feeling.
Yeah. Meeting to adjourn. Move to adjourn.
You have a motion to adjourn? Second. All those in favor?
Art, aye.
Caitlin, I.
Great guy.
David, I.
Adam, aye. Thank you, everyone. Have a good evening.